Chapter 1880. After Qin Zhao finished his morning exercise, he apologized to Felwood. After all, he'd left the guest at home and went to exercise. He washed off the seawater on his body so that it wouldn't turn into salt crystals. "Mr. Chen, do you exercise so much every morning?" "I'm used to it," Portia thought to herself. This was already a small amount today. Usually, Chen Zhao's morning training was 10 times more than this. If he had nothing to do in the morning, he'd basically train his body. "Mr. Chen, are you used to this house? Are there any flaws in the design?" Felwood acted up again and asked how comfortable Chen Zhao's house was. Even the most perfect house had flaws. Even Mingwei Villa was no exception. "When decorating the villa, try to reduce the sharp angles," Chen Zhao said. After all, there were children at home and they were active. Bumps and bumps were unavoidable. If there were sharp angles in the house, it would be a great threat to the children. Moreover, even Qin Zhao couldn't be absolutely sure about the unintentional injuries. "I understand. I will supervise the renovation of the villa by Mirror Lake." Felwood nodded. "Then, should Mingwei Villa be renovated? This is a flaw in our company. We have to take responsibility. We'll talk about it after Mirror Lake is finished," Qin Zhao said. "Are there any other requirements?" "It's best to add a larger elevator to the front yard to the beach. There are so many children and a small elevator isn't enough." This was a problem he hadn't considered before. Back then, there were only 4 people, pets, and underlings, so a 500-kilogram elevator was enough. But then they adopted 8 children. The small elevator wasn't enough at all when the children went up and down. Just then, Stephen and Famtis walked in. "Hi, Chen." When Felwood saw Stephen, he was stunned for a moment. Then he froze. You're Mr. Stephen? "Stephen, let me introduce you. This is Felwood Cisco. He's in charge of designing and building the villa at Mirror Lake." "Hello, Mr. Felwood." "Hello, Mr. Stephen." Felwood didn't expect Chen Zhao to introduce him to Stephen at all. Who was Stephen? He was the #1 director in the world. His identity, his fame, and his influence made it impossible for anyone to ignore him. In particular, the movie Kidnapped, which was released at the beginning of this month, caused an uproar in Hollywood. It kept breaking all the movie records. At the same time, it also increased Stephen's influence. Recently, he even had a new title. Stephen was known as the man who could shake Hollywood single-handedly. Stephen may not be the most powerful man in Hollywood. However, those who were more influential than him were all CEOs of the Big Six. They were backed by the Big Six. That was why he had more influence than Stephen. Apart from their identities, they were just rich people. But Stephen was different. He relied purely on himself. "Mr. Felwood, did Chen tell you about me?" "I've roughly explained it, but the specific design and construction of this project can only be carried out after my team of designers and I have seen the site." "Of course, I understand." "It was because Stephen liked the design of Mirror Lake Villa. Therefore, he hoped that Felwood Cisco, as the construction party, could also help him design and build a manor. Felwood also attached great importance to this project. After all, the employer this time was Stephen. If his manor was built, then as long as Stephen promoted it a little, then his company would be completely famous. He could design and build a new home for the world's best director. Just this alone would bring a lot of benefits to his company. The construction industry loved to design and build houses for famous people, especially Hollywood stars. Their homes would often be noticed by the media. Even the construction party would receive attention. "Mr. Felwood, are you free today? How about you come with me to my land to take a look?" "Of course." Felwood Cisco gladly accepted the offer. "Chen, come with me," Stephen said. "Why me? I don't know architecture. Can you give me some suggestions? There are so many kids at home. Portia can't handle it alone." In fact, Chen Zhao often let Portia take care of the kids alone. However, Chen Zhao was too lazy to go out, especially to Stephen's mountain. There was nothing there. He really didn't want to go. Then bring them all, Stephen said matter-of-factly. Then he turned his head. Little Jerlin, do you want to see the lake on the mountain? Yes, I want to go. Jerlin immediately responded to Stephen's call. Qin Zhao rolled his eyes. Fine. There were more adults today, so they didn't need to drive an RV or MPV. Stephen also brought Fantas. Each of them drove a car. 1 or 2 kids were enough in each car. The few cars headed towards Stephen's land. At the foot of the mountain, everyone alighted. The kids were full of firepower. Qin Zhao carried little Larissa while the other kids ran up the rugged mountain road. The mountain wasn't actually very tall. It just hadn't been built yet. The road wasn't that bad. The journey up the mountain took about 10 minutes. After the road was built, it would probably only take 2 or 3 minutes to go up and down the mountain. When they reached the top of the mountain, Felwood Cisco said, Mr. Stephen, if you want to build the villa on the mountain, the road on the mountain can't be built in a straight line. It can either be a spiral route around the mountain or an S-shaped route. Which one do you prefer? It'll be a lot longer around the mountain, right? But it's safer to build a mountain road around the mountain. The S-shaped path will have a few big turns, so the speed will be limited. It'll also be dangerous when you turn. Can we build a straight path? We can't build a straight, steep road. The mountain is at least 1,000 meters high. The slope will be almost 40 degrees. Cars can't run up it. So a spiral road is the best? Indeed. Felwood Cisco nodded. Actually, even if we build a long spiral road around the mountain, it'll only take us 5 minutes at most. Also, we can enjoy the scenery on the back of the mountain through the spiral road. Mr. Stephen's forest is quite beautiful. It stretches for hundreds of kilometers. We can even build a small courtyard on the back of the mountain. You can also stop the car and rest in the courtyard when you're free. Chapter 1881. Where does the water come from? Felwood asked. Underground river, Stephen said. The underground river turned the mountaintop lake into living water. The rich nutrients in the river also flowed into the lake. It was precisely because of this that the lake was so full of vitality. Plus, the wind from the mountaintop made the entire lake sparkling. Portia was secretly amazed by the beautiful scenery. These rich people always took the best places. Felwood Cisco was also amazed. The scenery here was too beautiful. It wasn't inferior to Mirror Lake. However, due to the geology, LA had many lakes. Felwood wondered if he should look for a place with such beautiful scenery. Being able to live in such a place would definitely make one's body and mind happy. What's the lake called? I haven't named it yet, Stephen said. At the same time, he looked at Qin Zhao. Chen, what do you think? Qin Zhao touched his forehead. I'll name it myself. I don't want to name it for you. If you're not satisfied in the future, you'll blame me. Stephen thought for a moment and said, How about Blessed Lake? I think this is land blessed by God. Qin Zhao pursed his lips. These foreigners indeed had similar tastes. Chen, don't you think my place is prettier than your Mirror Lake? Ha! In terms of scenery, Mirror Lake isn't worse than yours. In terms of value, my Mirror Lake isn't as high above sea level. Me, Fei Lai, and our kids can gallop as much as we want. We can also raise cows and sheep and grow our favorite fruits and vegetables. For example, grapes. Can you grow such good fruits here? I have a wider field of vision here, and I can easily go hunting in the mountains. Darling, do you want to go hunting? You can come here to hunt in the future. My place is connected to the forest too, Qin Zhao said in disdain. We can also hunt in the mountains. We won't come here to hunt. How close is your place to the city? What wild animals? My place is different. It's very ecological. I can drive a yacht in my place. Can you move it to the lake on the mountain? It's the same no matter where. Stephen was also anxious. To Stephen and Qin Zhao, he was just like a kid who liked to run his mouth. In any case, whatever my family has, your family can't compare. The others looked at the two of them speechlessly. Felwood Cisco, on the other hand, stayed away from their argument. He was the most awkward one. He didn't want to offend anyone. After the argument, Felwood said, "Mr. Stephen, the best place to build the manor is over there." "What do you think?" "Why over there?" "That's because it's the west side of the Blessed Lake, and the wind from the coastline blows from there. Therefore, in terms of wind direction, it's best to build a house facing the wind. When you're free, you can relax in the courtyard and enjoy the wind from the coastline. On the other hand, the natural light in that direction is unobstructed, and you can get abundant natural light all day long." "That does seem to make sense." Stephen nodded. "My budget is $100 million US. Everyone was stunned. Even Qin Zhao was shocked. "Stephen, are you crazy? This shouldn't cost that much, right? My request is to surpass Chen's Mirror Lake. Mr. Felwood, can you provide an outstanding design?" Qin Zhao's face darkened. Felwood smiled bitterly. How could he answer? He couldn't say in front of Qin Zhao that he could definitely do it. "I can only provide the best design I can. I can't give a definite answer." "Stephen, do you have so much money that you don't know where to spend it? At the beginning of next month, we'll get our first share of the box office." Qin Zhao's eyes brightened. "How much can we get?" "Right now, we can only get the North American box office," Stephen said. "We still need to calculate the overseas box office. After deducting various taxes, the first North American box office should be $1.3 billion US. We both have 30% investment, so it's around $400 million. Felwood Cisco and Portia were greatly provoked. "Evil capitalists! Didn't that old asterisk show Rasfa get more?" "We can't help it. Not only is he one of the producers, but PLM is also the distributor. At least 50% of the movie's profits will go into his pocket." Qin Zhao and Stephen each had 30% of the box office, but they couldn't really get 30%. The two of them were worth 30% of the profits, not 30% of the box office. "How much can we get from the overseas box office?" "It should be higher than the North American box office, right?" "We can't get much from the overseas box office. It's not even as much as the North American box office." "Why?" "Of course. The overseas box office is more complicated, especially PLM's distribution fees. According to the contract, the overseas box office takes up most of their revenue. We can get about $300 million US each. Although their movie was just for fun, they were still very formal when they signed the contract. They would get as much as they should. Everything was done according to the contract. We have to go and blackmail that old asterisk show Rasfa. Otherwise, I won't be satisfied." "I think so too." Stephen nodded. "Felwood, let's stop here for today," Qin Zhao said. "Bring some people to investigate the scene another day." "Okay. Stephen, let's go to Rasfa's house now." "Let's go. He stole a lot of wine from you. Let's go drink all of his wine cellar today." After Felwood left the mountain, he parted ways with Qin Zhao's group. He also wanted to join in the fun, but his relationship with Qin Zhao and Stephen wasn't at the level where they could have fun together, so he still left dutifully. Portia watched as Qin Zhao and Stephen led the way. After arriving at Beverly Hills, they walked into a huge manor. She felt deeply hurt again. Their friend was indeed a rich man, a super rich man. Seeing Qin Zhao and Stephen, Paul left to welcome them. "Paul, is Rasfa home?" "Mr. Rasfa is at the office." "I'll call him now," Paul said. "Tell him that if he doesn't come back in half an hour, Chen and I will drink all the wine in his wine cellar." Paul was helpless, but he couldn't stop Qin Zhao and Stephen. He could only pick up the phone and call Rasfa. Chapter 1882. Portia looked at the beach that was even longer than Bright Moon Beach. Portia cursed the evil capitalists in her heart again. Every inch of land in Beverly Hills was worth its weight in gold. The location of the beach was even higher. The price of such a long coast was probably more expensive than the construction of the entire Mingwe villa. This wasn't a remote area like Bright Moon Beach. There were no facilities nearby. The entire Bright Moon Beach was only $20 million. Of course, the real reason why Bright Moon Beach was so cheap was because of the sharks. Before Qingzhao moved in, there were hundreds of sharks near Bright Moon Beach. Beverly Hills, on the other hand, was a combination of tourism, shopping, leisure, and high-end residential area. In addition, many celebrities and rich people moved in. The Oscars, Grammys, Golden Globes, and other events also increased the value of Beverly Hills. A 200-square-meter house here would cost $3 million. That was around $150,000 per square meter. In other areas, a house would only cost $100,000 to $200,000. As for Portia, she roughly estimated the value of this supermansion in front of her. Without a few $100 million, it would be impossible to buy it. Portia was shocked once again. Then Rasfa returned. He saw Qingzhao and Stephen moving the wine out. Paul tried to stop them, but Rasfa was furious when he walked in. "You two are too much!" Rasfa roared in exasperation. "I'm still in a meeting. Isn't that perfect? We gave you a reason to slack off," Qingzhao said matter-of-factly. "Put my wine down, or I'll have Paul call the police." "Fuck you, you stole all this from Qin." "Don't think I don't know." "You say it like you didn't do it," Rasfa said, unconcerned. "Paul, go prepare some food for us," Qingzhao said. Paul left this troublesome place as if he was escaping. The three of them couldn't afford to offend him. "Qin, you usually don't come when I call you. Why did you come today?" "I'm eating from the rich," Qingzhao said. "You earn so much. You have to pay something." "That's right. Take this wine as payment." Stephen held 2 bottles of purple brew in his hands. "You say it like you earn very little." Rasfa rolled his eyes. All the accounts were from their company. Of course, Rasfa knew how much money Stephen and Qingzhao had. "But we still earn less than you." Portia hated these 3 evil capitalists very much. Rasfa looked at Portia, who was standing at the side. "Who is this young lady?" "My personal assistant, Portia." "Find a place to play." After Portia left, Rasfa came over immediately. "Chen, did you fuck her?" "Get lost, old pervert." The 3 of them sat on the beach, watching the children playing on the beach. Rasfa and Stephen already knew that Qingzhao had adopted 8 children. But this was the first time they had seen it. "Chen, what were you thinking? Why did you adopt so many children?" "It was a spur-of-the-moment idea." "Do you regret it?" "I don't regret it. It's just that sometimes I feel tired, but I also feel a sense of accomplishment." "Let them come to my place to play when they're free," Rasfa said. "Your place is too remote." "What fun do you have here? Watching you play with female celebrities?" "Aren't you afraid that Chun will kill you?" Stephen rolled his eyes. "Come to my place after my manor is built." "You're moving?" Rasfa still didn't know that Stephen had bought that land. "Don't you know? Stephen bought a few mountains. There's a very beautiful lake at the top of one of them. He's planning to build a new home on the lake." "Really? Is that place nice?" Chen said it's very nice. Stephen could only see the scenery, but he believed Qingzhao. Since Qingzhao said that the blessed lake was very nice, it must be. After dinner, Qingzhao and Stephen left with the children. "Famtus, it's night. Be careful when you escort Stephen." "Okay, Chen. Bye." "Bye." Portia helped to drive. The 2 of them took the children away in batches. When Qingzhao and Portia returned to Mingwe Villa, Fei Lai also arrived home. "Qin, where did you take the children to play today?" "Stephen's new land," Qingzhao said. "I introduced Felwood Cisco to Stephen. In the afternoon, we went to Rasfa's house in Beverly Hills." "Boss, what's Mr. Rasfa's business?" "He's the chairman of PLM." Portia's eyes widened. "He's the chairman of PLM, one of the big 6? He's also a major shareholder." Rasfa's business was very complicated. His total assets were probably in the tens of billions. Of course, he was most famous for his identity as the chairman of PLM. "Mr. Yang, won't you consider it?" We can provide you and Mount Longhu with a generous sponsorship fee. Vestana looked at Yanghua sincerely. I'm sorry, I'm just the person in charge of Dragon Tiger Mountain's Overseas Affairs Office. Miss Vestana, if you want to hire one of our brothers from Dragon Tiger Mountain as a consultant, you can contact our contact person. If you don't have a way to contact them, I can provide it. Vestana's expression darkened. In order to rope Yanghua in, she had made up her mind to hire him. If Yanghua could accept the invitation of the psionic ability team and become their special consultant, he would be able to become their special advisor. It meant that they could be connected to Dragon Tiger Mountain in China. Vestana didn't know about Dragon Tiger Mountain in the past. But after coming into contact with the spiritual world, she finally understood what Dragon Tiger Mountain represented. It was a super sect like Mount Everest, the highest peak in the world. And their leader seemed to be the strongest in the spiritual world. Vestana felt that he was powerful because he was from China. Dragon Tiger Mountain and their leader were definitely stronger than him. If she could get the support of Dragon Tiger Mountain and their leader, then the psionic team's power would increase greatly. For this, she was willing to pay a high price. But Yanghua didn't care at all. He just brushed her off. Every time Vestana saw Yanghua's businesslike attitude, she wanted to beat him up. But she also knew that she couldn't beat Yanghua. Even if she could, she didn't dare to. Dragon Tiger Mountain was a super sect that everyone couldn't ignore. Vestana dared to lead the psionic team to fight against the supernatural organization led by Qin Zhao because she knew what Qin Zhao and the organization were worried about. But Dragon Tiger Mountain was different. With one order, they could make the psionic team fall apart. Chapter 1883. Longhu Mountain's North American resident office was actually an office rented in an old neighborhood. There was a sign hanging on the door, Longhu Acupuncture, Massage, and Massage. Yanghua's office was a single room with a bathroom. The rent was less than $1,000 a month. The windows and doors were closed. When Yanghua smoked, the whole room was filled with smoke. Vestana had been here a few times, but she still couldn't get used to the environment. Yanghua leaned lazily on the boss's chair. Miss Vestana, I've told you many times that if you want to cooperate with Longhu Mountain, I'd like to express my gratitude and welcome. I can give you the phone number of the person in charge of Longhu Mountain's Foreign Affairs Office. But I don't have the authority to accept cooperation intentions on my own, so you should contact and consult Longhu Mountain's Foreign Affairs Office. Yanghua said lazily. Or is my English bad? You don't understand what I mean. Vestana sighed. She had tried to contact Longhu Mountain's Foreign Affairs Office directly. But what was the difference between the psionic team and Longhu Mountain? A remote African primary school went to Harvard University and said they wanted to cooperate and exchange. Was that even possible? Of course Harvard would ignore them. Longhu Mountain's Foreign Affairs Office's attitude was similar. They said they would pass on the message to the Divine Master and thank the psionic team for their friendship. It was a formal reply, but they threw Vestana's contact information into the trash can. Only then did Vestana remember to contact Yanghua first. Yanghua was from Longhu Mountain after all. If she could get Yanghua, it would be easy to deepen the relationship with Longhu Mountain through him. Moreover, it was said that Yanghua was also a powerful spiritualist. Vestana also found out through the intelligence network that Yanghua was a disciple of the Tao generation in Longhu Mountain. The Tao generation was quite high in seniority. It was said that the next Divine Master would be chosen from the Tao generation. So once the next Divine Master took over, Yanghua's status would also rise. This was also the reason why Vestana had been making promises time and time again, regardless of the cost. As long as Yanghua was willing to come to the psionic team as a special consultant, Vestana was willing to offer many conditions. From personal benefits to resources, she would give Yanghua whatever he wanted. At that moment, Yanghua stood up. Vestana saw Yanghua's reaction for the first time. She thought Yanghua had accepted her invitation and became excited. Vestana, it's time. Time? I'm off work. Sorry, I should go. Vestana was a little frantic. She felt that facing Yang Guo was similar to facing Qin Zhao. It was both unbearable. However, the two of them were completely different extremes. Qin Zhao was so domineering that no one could touch him. If he did, he would get hurt first. Yang Guo, on the other hand, was the kind of person who would laugh and let you disturb him for the entire afternoon. He was like a bouncy ball. No matter how they harassed him, he just listened with a smile. "I'm glad you came. You're welcome to come again." Vestana could only leave gloomily. As she walked out of the dark and damp corridor, a woman in a cloak walked past her. The woman's cloak was in tatters, and her entire body and head were wrapped up tightly. Vestana glanced at the strange woman in astonishment. The woman walked to Yang Guo's office and knocked on the door. "Come in, Mr. Yang." "Hi, Layli, you're here. How have you been?" Yang Guo greeted her. "Not very good." The woman's expression was a little ugly. "I need treatment." "Okay, wait a moment. I'll make some medicine for you." Yang Guo stood up and opened the cabinet. He took out some strange ingredients. After Yang Guo made the ingredients, he threw them into the juicer to make juice. In the end, a cup of black liquid flowed out of the juicer. "It's done. Take it." Yang Guo handed the black liquid to Layli. Layli put the cup to her mouth and immediately felt a pungent smell. However, she resisted the nausea and forced herself to drink all the black liquid. Layli felt her stomach churn several times. This made her retch a few times. Then, the medicine started to take effect. Layli's breathing gradually calmed down. "Layli, you seem to be acting up more and more frequently." Yang Guo looked at her seriously. "Did you use that power in your body again? I'm in trouble. Someone wants to catch me." "Someone wants to catch you?" "Yes, and they're very strong. Even though I used the power in my body, I still couldn't beat them." "Who?" "I don't know. It sounds like Spanish from their language." "People from Spain?" Yang Guo thought about it and said, "You can't beat them even if you use the power in your body?" "Yes, they're very strong," Layli said bitterly. "Also, they seem to know my ability and are targeting me. I can't fight them at all." Yang Guo and Layli were old acquaintances. Thus, Yang Guo wanted to help Layli solve her problem. Actually, the best way was to send Layli back to China, as long as she was on Mount Lunghu. As long as Layli was on Dragon Tiger Mountain, no one would be able to do anything to her. However, the key problem was not on Dragon Tiger Mountain. Dragon Tiger Mountain did not reject outsiders. For example, Zhang Tianyi and a few other foreign students. There were also a few foreign outer disciples in the mountain. As for Layli herself, the power in her body strongly rejected the East. If he really sent Layli to the East, she would probably go berserk on the plain. Yang Guo scratched his head and said, "I'll call Grandmaster and ask if he has any solutions." As Yang Guo spoke, he picked up the phone and dialed Zhang Tianyi's number. "Hello, Grandmaster. It's me, Little Yang." "Guo, do you know what time it is?" Zhang Tianyi let out a deafening roar on the other end of the phone. The entire Dragon Tiger Mountain trembled under Zhang Tianyi's anger. When the Celestial Master was angry, dragons and tigers roared. "Oh no!" Yang Guo cursed inwardly. He forgot that it was only 4 or 5 in the morning in China. "Grandmaster, I'm in trouble. My friend and I are being hunted. It's the friend named Layli I mentioned to you last time." "Being hunted? Who's after you?" "I don't know. They speak Spanish. Why don't you take them back to the mountain and hide? I don't need to call you if I can go back. You know Layli's situation. The angel blood in her is very against the land of China. Then there's nothing I can do. I can't let these old bones run over to the Americans. Grandmaster, please think of another way. How about I ask your wife to help you?" "No, no. Please don't." Chapter 1884. Do you have to be like this? What's wrong with your Xiaolongnu? She has a good body, looks, background, power, and bloodline. What are you not satisfied with? My ancestor, can different species combine? Yang Guo cried in pain. Of course. Why not? Don't you see all sorts of mixed bloods? Why are you fighting with them? The problem is every time she gets excited, she transforms. You don't have to tell me about your relationship. Forget it. Let's not talk about her. My friend and I are like this. You have to think of something. How about asking my senior Dowie to help me? You're thinking too much. Your senior Dowie is a candidate for the leader. He's the young leader of Dragon Tiger Mountain now. What do you have to ask him to help you? You can't just watch my friend and I die in a foreign place, right? Do you remember that Chin guy I told you to find last time? Go hide in his house. Him? Can he? Yanghua was doubtful. Didn't you go to his house? Didn't you see the dragon head in front of his house? That dragon was really slain by him. Yanghua asked in surprise. Yanghua had thought that Qin Zhao had gotten a dragon head to show off. He didn't think that Qin Zhao had really killed the dragon head. If he really has the ability to kill a dragon, he should be able to protect my friend, Yanghua murmured. With your lousy skills, everyone is better than you. What's there to complain about? Zhang Tiany's tone was filled with disdain. Ancestor, I'm a genius of Dragon Tiger Mountain, okay? There's no one in the younger generation who's more talented than me. Good my *SS. If you can, go kill a dragon for me to see. It's not like I haven't seen a dragon before. Yanghua pursed his lips. In fact, his wife's nickname was Little Dragon Maiden, and her true form was that of a Western dragon. Yanghua had seen his father-in-law. Back then, he'd been beaten up by his father-in-law for marrying Xiaolongnu. Yanghua felt that he could withstand his father-in-law's beatings. If he worked hard for a few more years, he might be able to kill a dragon. The dragon head in his yard is different. What's different? Forget it. There's no point in telling you. You don't understand at all. That Chin fellow is many times stronger than you. If I work harder, I can also catch up to him. I hope you can. Zhang Tiany didn't believe it. Zhang Tiany and Qin Zhao had sparred before. Although both sides were holding back, there were still some exchanges. However, at that time, it was only a spar, and no one used their true abilities. But Zhang Tiany knew that if they really fought, he probably wouldn't be able to beat Qin Zhao. Of course, Zhang Tiany's ability didn't lie entirely in his cultivation, but in his spells. In particular, he had the ability to subdue demons and devils. Zhang Tiany was confident he could even deal with a great demon like Tamamo no Mei. Even if he didn't kill Tamamo no Mei, he would at least be able to seal her. And Yanghua's talent was indeed rare in this world. But Yanghua could only reach the same level of cultivation as her. But Chen Zhao was different. He already had his own path. In the jargon of Taoism, he already had his own Tao. He hung up the call with Zhang Tiany. Yanghua turned to look at Rayleigh. Let's go. I'll take you somewhere. Suddenly, a huge impact came from behind without any warning. Yanghua's back was facing the window, so the impact sent him flying out. However, in the instant that Yanghua was sent flying, he threw out 3 talismans. Green light, white face, red spirit. Yanghua quickly made a hand seal. The 3 talismans instantly turned into 3 strange beasts of different shapes, green, white, and red. The 3 beasts were also demons, but they were different from Japanese Shikigami spells. The 3 beasts actually had nothing to do with Yanghua. Moreover, the 3 beasts before him weren't in their original forms either. Their original forms were extremely powerful. They borrowed their power through talismans and spells. Green light was in the form of a flood dragon, white face was a white tiger, and red spirit was a red crane. Don't attack. Let's go. Yanghua pulled Rayleigh and turned to run. The person who'd ambushed him was very strong. Yanghua didn't want to fight them here. Especially since Rayleigh was still here. If Rayleigh couldn't hold back and attacked again, it would be even more troublesome. Rayleigh was pulled away by Yanghua. The 3 beast clones were left to deal with the person who'd ambushed them. It's that group, Rayleigh said. Is it them? Yes. The person who ambushed you just now isn't awakened. He seems to be able to detonate anything. More than one person? Yang was suddenly stopped. More than one. As soon as he said that, someone blocked their way. It was a woman with waist-length hair wearing tight clothes. The woman held two swords in her hands. The long sword in the woman's hand was constantly making fancy movements. Be careful. This woman is also very strong, Rayleigh warned. She knows a special type of cloning spell. As soon as Rayleigh finished speaking, half of the long-haired woman's body emerged from the shadow. That half of the body was the long-haired woman's appearance, but it was completely black and her facial features couldn't be seen clearly. At the same time, the person who'd been entangled by the three beast clones also came out, blocking Rayleigh and Yanghua's path. You too, this humble one is Longhu Mountain's Divine Master Sex Dao Generation Yanghua. I hope you two can give our Divine Master Sex some face. This humble one will be very grateful. Yanghua actually knew that it was very unlikely to use Longhu Mountain's Divine Master Sex's name to scare off the two attackers. But it could occasionally work. Some people just fell for it. Although Yanghua's tone was weak, he was still 120% vigilant. He turned around and looked at the two people in front and behind with a serious expression. The person chasing them suddenly charged at Yanghua and Rayleigh. He was extremely fast. He ran on all fours like a wild beast. However, his appearance did not change at all, not even a little bit. Beast-like technique! Yanghua suddenly took out a bell and shook it. Rumble. It should have been a clear sound. But Yanghua shook it like a cannon. The surrounding walls collapsed. The person using the beast-like technique was directly hit by the sound of the bell and was sent flying. You'd better not act recklessly. The bell in my hand is a treasure of Longhu Mountain's Divine Master Sect. If I release it at full power, you two will die without a doubt. Suddenly, a black shadow crept up from under Yanghua's feet. In the next instant, the black shadow transformed into a human figure that tightly entangled Yanghua. The long-haired woman attacked. Chapter 1885. This shadow could be controlled by the long-haired woman. And just like the main body, it could move as she pleased. Yanghua tried to form a hand seal several times, but couldn't close his hands. The beast-like man on the other side lunged at him again. Yanghua saw that the enemy was about to succeed. Suddenly, Yanghua's right arm fell off. The shadow had originally pierced through Yanghua's armpit and latched onto his chest. As Yanghua's right arm fell off, the shadow couldn't help but loosen. The moment Yanghua broke free, his left hand grabbed his right arm, which turned into an edgeless great sword. Heavy edgeless sword! Bam! The man on the other side was sent flying. The long-haired woman's shadow tried to latch onto Yanghua again. But after losing his arm, Yanghua's strength increased instead of decreasing. He turned around and swung his sword. The shadow was smashed to pieces. The long-haired woman didn't slow down, still stabbing her sword towards Yanghua. The long-haired woman's attack was swift and fierce, her two swords sharp. But Yanghua's great sword was as heavy as Mount Tai, as powerful as a tidal wave. The long-haired woman couldn't block a single attack, the great sword had already landed on her. But as the great sword struck her, it also shattered like a shadow. The long-haired woman reappeared from the shadow in a dark corner. Yanghua looked at her. Although she was Caucasian, she used the Chinese martial arts style. This martial arts style wasn't martial arts, but rather martial arts combined with spells. There were close combat martial arts, as well as strange and ever-changing spells. This woman's martial arts style was full of strangeness, impossible to defend against. On the other side, the beast-like man also stood up unscathed. Let's go, Yanghua told Rayleigh in a low voice. They couldn't stay here for long, both of them weren't easy to deal with. Rayleigh was a bit confused. Yanghua was clearly suppressing them, why did he run? Sensing Rayleigh's confused gaze, Yanghua whispered. My great sword has never been sharpened before, it can only protect myself, it can't hurt the enemy. Rayleigh still didn't understand. What difference does that make? Yanghua couldn't explain it to Rayleigh at a time like this. Follow behind me, we're going out. At this time, the long-haired woman and the beast-like man attacked again. Eek! Suddenly, a sharp sound came from above. A gray shadow descended from the sky, the sound like a sword, the momentum like an arrow. The long-haired woman felt a sharp pain on her left shoulder. Her shoulder had been scratched by Yanghua's eagle. The long-haired woman instantly fell to the ground. Yanghua grabbed Leili's hand and walked past her. In an instant, Yanghua transformed the sword back into his right arm and reattached it to the stump. At this time, the eagle turned around and Yanghua reached out to pull it back. The condor actually pulled Yanghua into the air. Yanghua then grabbed Leili and flew into the air as well. Leili's face was full of surprise. The eagle looked bigger than an ordinary eagle, but she didn't expect it to be able to carry two adults in the sky. The long-haired woman and the beast-like man could only watch as Yanghua and Leili left. There was nothing either of them could do about it. Phew! Those two fellows are really hard to deal with. Yang, you're clearly stronger than the two of them. Why are you running? Yanghua smiled bitterly. I practice the Taoist Yin and Yang dual life. In my normal state, I'm Yang. In this state, my defense is 100 times that of a normal person. It's almost indestructible. But there's a flaw, and that is that I can't kill. Look at the sword that my right arm has transformed into. The sword doesn't have a blade. Yanghua paused and then said, If I really want to kill someone, I have to use the Yin death state. Then why don't you use the Yin death state? Do you think that state is something that can be changed whenever you want? Yanghua shook his head. The Yin death state will cause me to lose my mind. If my Grandmaster isn't here, I wouldn't dare to use the Yin death state at all. Only the Grandmaster's aura can suppress my loss of mind. So, unless it's necessary, I don't dare to use the Yin death state. Leili nodded. It was unknown whether she understood or not. Although Leili had the bloodline of an angel, she didn't have much contact with the spiritual world. She had known Yanghua for a few years, and every time, she would ask Yanghua for help to suppress the bloodline in her body. Yanghua also rarely talked to her about the spiritual world. Your big eagle is so strong. What breed is it? Yanghua rolled his eyes. Who knew what breed it was? In any case, it wasn't an ordinary eagle. In fact, it was a demon that hadn't transformed. It was given to him by Zhang Tianyi. He said that only with a big eagle would he be complete Guer. Fortunately, it was night. No one would see the two flying in the sky. Where are we going now? There's someone in Los Angeles who can protect us. Who? He's also my compatriot, a Chinese. Children's laughter could be heard from the front yard. Feili was teaching little Larissa how to walk. Little Larissa's athletic ability was weaker than little Jerlin's. In 5 months, little Jerlin could already run, jump, swim, and climb trees. Little Larissa still staggered and followed Feili's steps. Good, darling. Very good. Feili stood on the other side and clapped her hands to encourage little Larissa. Little Larissa stood up with difficulty and took a step with difficulty. However, her other foot was left behind and she couldn't move forward. After a few tries, little Larissa finally moved her other leg. She couldn't maintain her balance and fell to the ground. Nevertheless, little Larissa stood up firmly, not discouraged at all. Qin Zhao sat on the ground and put his palms in front of him. Wearing boxing gloves, Crow kept punching Qin Zhao's palms. Very good. Left fist, right fist, left fist. Continue. Speed up. Raise your leg. Crow's attacks were very fierce. He used both his hands and feet, but he still couldn't break through Qin Zhao's defense. Under the full attack, Crow was already sweating profusely. Nevertheless, Crow still persisted. Crow was introverted, but this also made him stubborn and persistent. Qin Zhao didn't tell him to stop, so he kept attacking. Qin Zhao glanced at the sky and then waved his hand. Okay, you can stop now. Just then, the eagle descended from the sky with Yanghua and Leili. Leili looked at the men, women, and children in the manor. Was this the place that Yanghua said could protect them? On the other hand, Yanghua had a friendly expression. Qin Zhao, hello? Chen Zhao ignored Yanghua and turned to look at Lily. This woman's body has an aura that makes me very uncomfortable. Lily looked at Chen Zhao. She also felt uncomfortable. The pets in the house also felt uncomfortable or disliked Lily. Just then, Samuel jumped onto Chen Zhao's shoulder and looked at Lily. Descendant of angels. The moment Lily saw Samuel, a huge pair of wings spread open on her back. Chapter 1886. A holy aura emanated from Raleigh. Her gaze toward Chen Zhao was filled with hostility. Even she didn't know why she had such a feeling. However, Samuel only glanced at Raleigh and then lost interest. Chen Zhao also had the same feeling toward Raleigh. It was like she was his natural enemy. After all, he had demon blood in him too. However, one only needed to be rational to know that this was hostility from the bloodline. He wouldn't have any special feelings for her. Raleigh, why are you using this power again? Yanghua asked, frowning. Just now, when facing danger, Raleigh had resisted the urge to use her angelic power. But now, facing Chen Zhao, Raleigh actually released this dangerous power. Put your wings away, Chen Zhao said indifferently. If you want to stay here as a guest. Raleigh took a deep breath and suppressed the uncomfortable feeling in her heart. Before Raleigh and Yanghua arrived, Chen Zhao had received Zhang Tiany's call. Chen Zhao cursed silently. He'd just gotten Zhang Tiany's heaven and man coexistence and owed him a favor. But now it was time to return the favor. And an angel, a mixed angel. She was the nemesis of their entire family. After Raleigh put away her wings, the atmosphere relaxed. Is this your little lover? She's the same as Yanghua in the novel. Chen Zhao glanced at Raleigh and then conversed with Yanghua in Chinese. What? I have nothing to do with her. Neither does Yanghua in the novel. Did you forget what Yanghua said? Once you meet Yanghua, you'll regret your whole life, Chen Zhao said, gloating. But you have a good chance to enjoy having two lovers. Spare me, please. If my wife hears this, she'll kill me. Oh, where's Xiaolongnu? You only brought your little lover? You didn't bring your wife? I don't want to talk to you. Fei Lai brought Raleigh to wash up and change. She looked like an African refugee now. What's with that woman? As you can see, she's a woman who's being hunted. She has angel blood, Yanghua said. That's too simple. Be more specific. That's all I know. Who's chasing her? Chen Zhao said matter-of-factly. Kill the person who's chasing her. Are you a man or not? She and I are friends. Let's not talk about the fact that I don't know who's after her. Even if I knew, it's none of my business. Besides, I might not be able to deal with the people who are after her. Do you want to help me? If you don't care, then why should I care? At most, I'll provide you with a place to stay. If anyone comes to harass you within the boundaries of my home, I'll help you deal with it. But once you leave this area, you can do whatever you want. If we don't get rid of the people who are after Layli, won't she have to stay here for a long time? Long term? You're wrong. I have at most a week. Within a week, you can either find help from your fellow disciples or get the hell out of here. Chen Zhao said matter-of-factly. A week? How can we make it in time? Yanghua panicked. He was actually very strong, but his battle prowess was very average. Even the two people he faced today. He was clearly stronger than the other party, but he didn't dare to face him head-on. Chen Zhao was unmoved by Yanghua's cries. Anyway, he would leave a person who was against his family in his home. Taking them in for a week was to return Zhang Tiany's favor. How about we make a bet? Yanghua had an idea. He looked at Chen Zhao with a smile on his face. What bet? Let's bet. If you can't hit me, I'll stand still. If you can injure me within 3 moves, I lose. Yanghua said confidently. If you don't injure me within 3 moves, I'll consider it my win. Little Yang, Chen Zhao said in a strange tone. At the same time, he patted Yanghua's shoulder. Don't call me Little Yang. Fine, Guerre. Just call me Little Yang. Little Yang, look at this dragon's head. I killed it. Are you sure you can take it? Yanghua was very confident in his heart. Back then, he'd withstood his father-in-law's beating for an entire day. After an entire day, he'd at most suffered some light injuries. It was just a drizzle. He didn't believe that Qin Zhao could injure him within 3 moves. Nevertheless, Yanghua also grasped Qin Zhao's thoughts. Since Qin Zhao had the ability to kill dragons, he must be very confident in his own abilities. He definitely didn't think that Yanghua could take his attacks. I'm very sure. What if you lose? If I lose, you can do whatever you want to me. What do you mean by that? Even if I wanted to kill you, the people from Dragon Tiger Mountain would come looking for trouble. You're not sincere at all. Chen Zhao's face was full of disdain. He didn't want to kill Yanghua. Killing him would bring him trouble. So, Yanghua's bet didn't benefit Chen Zhao at all. Yanghua thought for a moment and said, Then I'll do whatever you want. What do you think? How long? A year. That's not short, right? Sounds good. Chen Zhao nodded. It would be a waste not to take a free laborer. Chen Zhao didn't like Yanghua. But since it was free, he had no reason to reject. Then if you lose, you have to give Lily at least a year. Yanghua's face finally revealed a proud smile, no longer hiding his thoughts. It was as if he was mocking Qin Zhao for falling into his trap. Sure. Qin Zhao nodded. Yanghua took a deep breath. Wait a moment. I'll make some preparations. Go ahead. Tell me when you're ready. With that, Qin Zhao picked up his phone. I'll make a call too. Qin Zhao called Zhang Tianyi. Old Zhang, your disciple said he wants to bet with me. He wants to see if I can break his defense in 3 moves. Why did you call the Grand Master? Yanghua looked at Qin Zhao in shock. Zhang Tianyi's face darkened. Give the phone to Yanghua. Yanghua took the phone and said timidly, Hello, Grand Master. Are you out of your mind? Grand Master, I'm confident. Please don't scold me. What confidence do you have? Admit defeat right now. I'm really confident. You're not even fully grown yet, and you're already challenging everywhere? Grand Master, I know what I'm doing. After saying that, Yanghua directly hung up the phone. Chen Zhao, how can you be like this? Calling the Grand Master completely messed with my mind. I can't even use 10% of my strength now. Then I only need 1 move. If you can block one of my moves, I'll admit defeat. Fine, you said it. Don't go back on your word. Yanghua threw the phone back to Qin Zhao. Sikong Starlord, 6th grade of the middle stage, please issue a decree. Come! Yanghua shouted and threw the talisman into the air. Chapter 1887. The 6th pure Sikong Lord was the middle stage of the 3 celestial lords, the main sect. The other 2 celestial lords were the Void Spirit Kai Lord and the Chu Xing Si Lu Lord. In Taoism, the 3 celestial lords corresponded to heaven, earth, and man. They were also known as essence, qi, and spirit. Heaven was empty, earth was blue, and man was dust. The 6th pure Sikong Lord belonged to man and was in charge of defense. This god's decree was to use external qi to temporarily buff one's body. The talisman ignited in the air, turning into a wisp of smoke and dissipating. The smoke turned into a faint shadow in the air and instantly entered Yanghua's body. After God's decree was done, Yanghua didn't stop. He cast a second buff. Qin Zhao picked up the phone again. Old Zhang, your disciple's spell looks really cool. How much strength do I need to use? I don't know. Qin Zhao, don't kill my disciple, or I'll never let you off. I don't know how to control my strength. I'm not confident. Qin Zhao, I have a false life substitute talisman. I'll give it to you. I'll try to control my strength. Qin Zhao glanced at Yanghua and put away the phone. Done? By now, Yanghua had already cast 5 defensive spells. Come! Yanghua crooked his finger. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Pooh! Ugh! Yanghua spat out a mouthful of blood. Immediately, a huge force pierced through Yanghua's body. Like a cannonball, Yanghua flew out of the cliff in an arc. It had been a long time since Qin Zhao had touched such solid flesh with his fist. He'd used 30% of his normal strength in that punch. He didn't dare to use too much strength, but it seemed that Yanghua could take at least 50% of his strength. Of course, even 30% of his strength was enough to heavily injure Yanghua. Yanghua flew more than 100 meters in the air. Then he fell into the sea with a splash. Yanghua floated on the surface of the sea just like that. Right now, Yanghua had completely lost consciousness. His body and mind were both injured. Chen Zhao's punch had dazed him. He'd never been injured like this before. No one had been able to break through his defense with one punch. Swish, 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 swish. Just then, Yanghua's phone rang. Yanghua took out his phone slowly. "Boy, how was it? Did you feel good?" Zhang Tianyi's gloating tone gave Yanghua another blow. "Grandmaster, you already knew? I warned you long ago, but you didn't listen. Even I don't dare to take a punch from Qin Zhao. Where did you get the courage to fight him? Don't look for excuses. Since you're willing to bet, you have to accept your loss. Whatever you lost to him, you have to fulfill your promise honestly." Zhang Tianyi believed that Qin Zhao would give him face and not make things too difficult for his immature disciple. But with Qin Zhao's bad personality, if he didn't get anything from Yanghua, he probably wouldn't give Yanghua anything good either. Yanghua felt stifled. He now understood what it meant to be a pretentious prick. Unfortunately, he was the one who started it. Now, he had to swallow this bitter pill himself. Yanghua returned to the Minghua villa and sat on the ground dejectedly. Qin Zhao had a smile on his face. "I won just now, right?" "You win." Although Yanghua was very unwilling, he still didn't want to admit defeat. Yanghua wasn't satisfied, but he could only accept it. A loss was a loss. "I didn't use my real power," Yanghua added. "That was a moment of carelessness. Otherwise, you definitely wouldn't have been able to break through my defense. Come, I'll give you another chance. Use your real power and let's fight again." Qin Zhao didn't mind at all. He'd roughly tested Yanghua's strength with that one sentence. One had to admit that Yanghua's defense was very shocking. He was even stronger than the dragons Qin Zhao knew. Qin Zhao's punch could kill a dragon in an instant. But he only injured Yanghua. Qin Zhao didn't know how strong Yanghua was, but his defense was ridiculously strong. Hearing Qin Zhao's words, Yanghua cursed inwardly. Qin Zhao didn't give him any face at all. He was just being polite. In the end, Qin Zhao didn't even give him a chance. "I'm injured. After I recover, I'll fight you again." Yanghua turned to leave. "Which room am I in?" "I'll take you there." Qin Zhao brought Yanghua to the door. "This is your room." Yanghua pushed the door open and entered. 3 seconds later, Yanghua ran out of the room pathetically. "Qin Zhao, you're too much." "What's wrong?" "Rayleigh's in the room." "Perfect. I'll create a chance for you. I'm a man with a family. You don't even know how to enjoy having multiple partners." Qin Zhao pursed his lips. "Then you can stay opposite." At night, Qin Zhao waited until everyone was asleep before rising into the sky again. When he reached a certain height, he used heaven and man coexistence. Qin Zhao's power kept spreading. The entire small world was enveloped in the swirling air currents. There were no clouds in the sky, so no matter how fast the air flowed, there wouldn't be any weather effects. The yin-yang fish in Qin Zhao's body kept spinning and growing stronger. However, after forming the yin-yang fish and stabilizing it, his cultivation speed slowed down. Every day, he would cultivate until the sun appeared at the end of the sky. Of course, it was much faster to see the sun from tens of thousands of meters in the sky than on the ground. Qin Zhao returned to the ground and started cultivating, absorbing and converting immortal power. Qin Zhao's cultivation was divided into 2 parts. The first was to absorb cosmic rays and cultivate yin energy. Then, he would absorb the spiritual qi in the world and convert it into immortal power, cultivating yang energy. Minghua Villa had the immortal's inner core that old turtle had left behind, so Qin Zhao could directly absorb the immortal power from it and convert it into his own. This process was much faster than directly absorbing the spiritual qi in the world and converting it into immortal power. After a day of cultivation, it was almost time for breakfast. Early in the morning, Qin Zhao saw Yanghua walk out of the room in high spirits. "Looks like you've recovered well." Qin Zhao glanced at Yanghua. "Of course. No matter how serious my injuries are, I can completely recover in 3 days. Last night's minor injuries are enough for me to recover in 1 night," Yanghua said proudly. "What's for breakfast?" "Youtiao and soy milk." "Do you want it?" "You can eat youtiao and soy milk here?" Yanghua asked in surprise. "If you want to eat, help yourself. I won't help you get it." Yanghua came and left in a hurry. He only came back with breakfast. Just then, Lily also woke up. Looking at her face, she didn't seem to have slept well last night. This was understandable. After all, to her, this place was like hell. It was filled with a demonic aura. Chapter 1888. The last thing Chen Zhao's family would do was give in to outsiders. Chen Zhao would protect Riley, but he wouldn't give in to her. If she wanted to stay, she could stay. If not, she could leave. Reluctantly, Riley sat down for breakfast. Chen Zhao's family frolicked at the breakfast table. Riley didn't say anything. Portia was here to get free food and drinks again. "Boss, who are they?" "Friends." Portia walked over to Yanghua and Riley. "Hi, I'm Portia." "Hi." Yanghua shook hands with Portia. Riley was a silent person. She didn't say anything. Portia didn't mind either. She was used to all kinds of strange people in Chen Zhao's family. Not long after Fei Lai went to work, Denver and Alex came. "Mr. Chen, long time no see." Denver greeted Chen Zhao. "Here's this month's financial report. Take a look." Chen Zhao always had a headache with numbers. After seeing the signature and stamp of the finance department, he continued reading. Chen Zhao had Ash Roford move from the sales department to the finance department. He was Chen Zhao's man, so he could be Chen Zhao's spy. It wasn't that Chen Zhao didn't trust Denver, even though he'd given him almost all the power. However, he still had to do the necessary financial reconciliation. Ash Roford was still on parole. But according to the work the company had given him and the evaluation report, his original 1-year sentence was reduced to half a year. Apparently, after his sentence was over, he planned to fight for custody of his daughter. When he divorced his wife, he'd had problems with his finances and work. Because of that, he'd lost custody of his daughter. Coupled with the kidnapping at the airport, he'd been convicted for endangering public safety. He didn't even have visitation rights or the right to leave the country. But with Chen Zhao's help, his life was back on track. So, Ash Roford was completely loyal to Chen Zhao now. It was common practice for a shareholder to send a financial officer to the company. Denver wouldn't be unhappy because of this. "Last month's profit seems to have increased again," Chen Zhao said. "Yes, because of the increase in production, the market share has increased, and the cost has been greatly reduced. That's why the profits are so high," Denver explained. "However, this is basically the highest profit we can achieve with our current production. Our company's beer production is still a problem. We can't solve the problem of production for now. After all, the water used is from Mirror Lake. Mirror Lake can't be drained." Denver also understood this logic. In addition, Dashin beer was now popular, largely because of hunger marketing. Dashin beer was always in short supply when it came to market demand. As a result, Dashin beer would often be sold out within 4 to 5 days. For the next few days, they were out of stock. "What's our current plan for beer?" Chen Zhao asked. "What we need to do now is to maintain the market share, stabilize the market, and increase the advertising," Denver said. Although Dashin beer was very popular, almost everyone knew about it. However, for beverage products, advertising has always been indispensable. For example, the largest cola company in the past once thought that their product was famous enough, so they stopped investing in advertising for a year. In the end, the product's sales dropped by 60% that year. It was also the only time that the second cola brand surpassed the first in sales. Denver also focused on stability. As always, Chen Zhao supported Denver's decision. As long as Denver didn't make any stupid decisions, Chen Zhao wouldn't interfere with his company's management and development strategy. Chen Zhao's income last month was 150 million. After reading it, he gave the bill to Alex. She was in charge of checking the accounts and legal verification. Alex glanced at the number on the bill and grinned. A while ago, she thought that Chen Zhao's customized yacht was too extravagant. Now, she felt that Chen Zhao's money came too easily. "Auntie Alex!" Little Jerlin ran in from outside and jumped onto Alex's body. Alex picked up little Jerlin and teased her. "Little Jerlin, you've grown heavier again. Are you planning to become a big fatty?" "No, I'm growing taller. Plus, I swim every day." Alex wasn't worried about Jerlin's growth at all. Chen Zhao was indeed very good at children's growth. Jerlin wasn't the only one who was growing well. The other children were all rosy and energetic too. "Auntie! Hug!" Little Larissa followed Alex's lead and reached out for a hug as well. Alex picked them up one by one. "Little Larissa still remembers me?" Little Larissa took out a lollipop from her pocket. "Auntie, eat." The candy Chen Zhao gave Jerlin and Larissa were all lollipops like this. If they choked on it, they could pull it out immediately. The other children and even the pets could handle it. If it was a regular candy, it would be very troublesome if they choked on it. Children like to eat sweets mainly because they needed it for growth. As long as they didn't overeat, Chen Zhao wouldn't stop them. Plus, it wasn't like the family didn't have money. Denver was a workaholic, so he went back to the company after checking the accounts. Alex stayed to play with the children. "Chin, you said last time that there's a big project next year. As long as I have the money, you'll let me in. Is that true? You have money?" Chen Zhao turned his head and looked at Alex. "I don't, but you do." Alex looked at Chen Zhao. "I'll borrow some money at the bank's interest rate." "How much do you want?" 500 million, Alex said. "Okay." Chen Zhao nodded. To put it simply, the project in Chen Zhao's plan was to share the benefits and share the profits equally. If Chen Zhao was alone, he definitely couldn't make the project big. In front of such huge benefits, everyone would be jealous. Both the government and the industry would suppress him. The best choice was to share the benefits equally. There was strength in numbers. Apart from being Chen Zhao's family, Alex also had a huge amount of legal resources. This was also the power Chen Zhao needed. So, Chen Zhao had no reason to reject Alex's participation. It was just borrowing money. Apart from depreciating, it had no other use. So, if the bank could borrow money, he could do it too. Portia was already cursing Chen Zhao's monthly income of more than 100 million. She ate her sandwich hatefully, as if she wanted to make Chen Zhao poor. Chapter 1889. Congratulations, boss. You've made a lot of money again. Portia licked her lips as she walked over. He planned to say a few good words and see if he could erase the debt. If you want to borrow money, you can, according to the bank's interest rate. If you want to go back on your word, you can jump into the sea. What do you want to talk to me about? It's fine. Portia decisively turned around and left. Sure enough, he was thinking too much. He was too stupid to talk about money with Chen Zhao. Just then, Portia's phone rang. Portia picked up the phone and handed it to Chen Zhao. Boss, it's a call from Seagate Yachts. Hey, it's Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao took the phone. The person who called was Oliver Lurby. They could be considered old acquaintances. Mr. Chen, the headquarters sent a message saying that the construction of your yacht has begun. The higher-ups would like to invite you to visit the headquarters and check on the progress of the yacht. As an important client of Seagate, the company had also secretly investigated his assets. However, because Mountain Beer wasn't listed, Seagate didn't know his exact assets. But through the bank, they knew that Chen Zhao had some cash. In terms of net worth, Let's not talk about the hidden tycoons in this world. He wasn't even in the top 30 on the Forbes list. But in terms of cash, Qin Zhao was definitely in the top 10. Moreover, Qin Zhao's money had entered the bank account openly. This meant that Qin Zhao's money came from a legitimate source. If it was that kind of black money or illegal income, it would not be easy for them to find out. Because of this, the executives of Seagate Yachts wanted to get close to Qin Zhao. I don't have time recently, Qin Zhao said. Mr. Qin, you don't have to reject me so quickly. There's still a long time before the yacht is built anyway. Our company headquarters welcomes you at any time. Okay. If I have time, I'll go. Qin Zhao didn't make any promises. Boss, Italy is quite interesting, especially Rome. There are many scenic spots. Do you want to go? If you want to go, then go. Also, help me check the progress of my yacht construction. I think I'll pass. Portia hurriedly refused. Italy could be said to be a major producer of luxury goods. This country didn't have much else, but it had a lot of luxury brands. Portia didn't dare to imagine whether she would lose her mind if she went to Italy. It was a repeat of what had happened in Tokyo, Japan. When she was in Tokyo, Japan, she had already owed a huge sum of money. If he went to Italy again, he would definitely have to file for bankruptcy. If Qin Zhao wanted to go, she could go with him. But if she went alone, she could probably sell herself in Italy. Ignoring the babbling Portia, Qin Zhao changed into his swimming trunks and went to exercise. At the same time, on the outskirts of the Bright Moon Villa, a man holding an optical telescope stood in the forest on a steep slope. There were two other people standing beside this person. They were the man and woman who had attacked Lily and Yanghua last night. How is it, Deuce? No, we can't barge in. That manor is very dangerous. Deuce shook his head. Even if all of us work together, it won't work? No. Dosei said with certainty. The master there is very powerful. He is not on the same level as us. The woman who was good at fighting frowned and said, Then use that thing. Deuce shook his head again. The holy spear is still unable to unleash its true power. It won't be of any use against an enemy like that. This won't do, that won't do. What should I do? Deuce suddenly put away the telescope. The other two looked at Deuce in surprise. What's wrong? We've been discovered, Deuce said seriously. Let's go. The other two were doubtful about Deuce. However, they still obeyed his order and left. Deuce, we are at least 5 kilometers from the coastline. How can we be discovered? I don't know. Deuce's expression was serious. That Asian is very powerful. Even from so far away, he is still looking in this direction. Qin Zhao had indeed discovered that someone was watching him. However, he had only discovered the exact direction. The person had reacted quickly. Also, because it was a green mountain and the person was hiding in the forest, Qin Zhao had not been able to capture the person's tracks immediately. Qin Zhao's small world was only 1,000 meters in diameter. The person was hiding more than 1,000 meters away. Qin Zhao could not pinpoint the exact location. If it was within the small world, then anyone who entered would be able to sense it. Qin Zhao could sense their every move. However, the gaze was very unfamiliar. It was probably not someone Qin Zhao knew. Therefore, it was very likely that the person was here for Lily and Yanghua. Deuce, we've proposed a few plans, but you've rejected all of them. What do you think we should do? Spirit Fox, I'm not opposing you on purpose, but it's too risky. I can sense how dangerous that man is. If we choose to attack forcefully, we might incur a fierce counterattack. This is North America. How strong can there be? In the last 2 battles of the Holy Glory, not even a single spiritualist from North America participated. Can this kind of magic desert really produce any strong people? Don't underestimate any region, Deuce said calmly. You never know how many terrifying existences are hidden in the dark. Then what do you think we should do? Spirit Fox asked, dissatisfied. No one can stay in one place forever, Deuce said. That Asian can't, and neither can our target. We just have to wait patiently. I don't like waiting. Deuce looked at the other person. Beast, we don't have to take the risk. However, Beast did not think so. Beast held a long object wrapped in white cloth in his hand. It looked like some kind of weapon. The white cloth was stained with blood. The holy spear has already sucked the blood of dozens of spiritualists. It can kill anyone now. I don't think we should hold back for an Asian. Deuce glanced at Beast. If you think I'm wrong, you can try. Beast and Deuce looked at Spirit Fox. Spirit Fox hesitated, but in the end, she still chose to support Beast. She was also more inclined to attack directly instead of holding back and running away. Deuce was somewhat disappointed with the two's choices. However, he clearly did not intend to continue persuading them. I hope you won't regret your choices. Deuce turned and left. Spirit Fox and Beast exchanged glances. Beast really wanted to stab Deuce in the back. Chapter 1890. Deuce stopped in his tracks again. Don't try to do anything behind my back. I can see it. I'm also one of the wielder of the Holy Spear, so the Spear of Longinus is useless against me. Deuce was warning the two of them. The Holy Spear wrapped in white cloth in Beast's hand felt warm. Although the Holy Spear was called the Holy Spear, it was more like a demon's weapon. The more blood it sucked, the stronger it became. You better be careful. This Holy Spear might not be the Spear of Longinus. As for whether it has the ability to kill gods, no one can be sure, Deuce warned. With that, Deuce strode away, no longer caring about his two companions. Beast and Spirit Fox looked at each other. The Spear of Longinus. The legendary Holy Spear. The weapon that had stabbed YS and was stained with the blood of gods. It was a coincidence that Beast and Spirit Fox had obtained this weapon. It was as if a mysterious hand had personally delivered the sacred spear into their hands. This holy spear did not belong to any of them. Instead, it was shared among the three of them. However, if one of them gave it up, they would lose the right to own it. Ever since the holy spear fell into their hands, they started killing. The holy spear would tell them who to kill. With each kill, the holy spear's power would increase slightly. In the beginning, the spiritualists they killed were weak, incompetent, and unknown spiritualists. But as time passed, the spiritualists they killed became stronger and stronger. Their power also increased with the growth of the holy spear. In a few years, they had killed dozens of spiritualists. The holy spear had given them different powers. This time, the target that the holy spear wanted them to kill was Lily. Beast and Spirit Fox were both very aggressive. Moreover, as their strength continued to grow, their ambitions were also further increased. But the difference was that Deuce had always been calm. Even if he was constantly gaining power from the holy spear, he still kept his cool. He had hinted to Spirit Fox and Beast many times. This was not the real spear of Longinus. The legendary holy spear would not ask them to kill people continuously. Moreover, most of the people they had killed were not bad people. Some of the spiritualists that they had killed could even be considered good people. But Spirit Fox and Beast still firmly believed that the spiritualists that they had killed had sins that outsiders did not know about. Killing them was actually putting them on trial. They represented the will of the sacred spear, the will of God. They were the chosen and chosen apostles of God. Of course, most importantly, they were enjoying the extreme pleasure brought by the sacred spear. That kind of power that could easily make people stronger made them unable to stop. As they watched Dose leave, they all sensed the message transmitted by the sacred spear. Deuce was no longer the wielder of the holy spear. Right now, there were only two wielders of the holy lance: Spirit Foxes and wild beasts. The power that had been bestowed upon Dose had also been stripped away. This power was divided among the Spirit Foxes and wild beasts. Once again, the two of them felt an even greater power. Although it was one person's power that was split into two. However, after this power fused into their bodies, it made them more than twice as strong as before. The two of them were completely immersed in this power. An irresistible pleasure spread to every corner of their bodies. who their breaths were filled with pleasure. His choice was indeed correct. That was foolish of Deucer. He actually chose to give up his identity as the holder of the sacred spear. As the spirit fox and wild beast grew stronger, the two of them became more confident about their next target. As expected, Deuce looked at his hands. It did not feel good to have his power stripped away. Deuce could not get used to this feeling of vanity. However, his choice today was also his first attempt. Compared to the spirit fox and wild beast, Deuce was very cautious. He wanted to be sure. If he gave up on the sacred spear, what would happen? He also discovered that after the power was stripped away, his body had clearly appeared on an unknown bed. It seemed that this power had some sort of affinity with his body and soul. If he continued, the sacred spear would give him even more power. Then, this power would fuse with his body and soul to a greater extent. At that time, he would no longer be able to escape the control of the sacred spear. At that time, they would no longer be wielders of the spear, but servants of the sacred spear. Those two pitiful fellows. They thought they had picked up a bargain. In fact, they only sped up the process. Deuce had always been suspicious, killing those spiritualists one after another. This could very well be a conspiracy. The sacred spear's origin was too strange. Deuce did not believe that there was such a thing as a free lunch in this world. However, the spirit fox and wild beast still did not believe him. Or rather, they actually had their own suspicions. They just did not want to face this possibility. Deuce did not pity those he had killed before. He just did not want to become a puppet for a weapon. Qinzhao, Rayleigh isn't feeling well. Go and take a look. Yanghua came again. Qinzhao entered Rayleigh's bedroom and immediately felt that her breathing was very unstable. What's wrong with her? Her bloodline seems to be out of control. What if it's out of control? What do you think will happen? You mean she'll lose her mind and attack us randomly? That's right. In other words, I can kill her justifiably? Don't joke around, okay? I asked you to treat her, not to kill her. Qinzhao walked to Rayleigh's side. Rayleigh lay on the bed. Under her skin, a faint white glow flowed through her blood vessels. Qinzhao's heart suddenly jumped. Demons hated angelic crystals the most. Would angels also reject demonic crystals? Qinzhao took out a demonic crystal. As expected, the moment the demonic crystal approached Rayleigh's body convulsed instantly. She seemed to be in extreme pain. And under her skin, the blood vessels were restored. It seemed to be effective. The aura of the demonic crystal suppressed the angel's power. Of course, it was not accurate to say that it was suppressed. More accurately, it was scared away. Rayleigh's angelic bloodline rejected the aura of the demonic crystal. After the angelic bloodline faded, Rayleigh woke up. What's wrong with me? Rayleigh opened her eyes and looked at Qinzhao and Yanghua. Qinzhao used the demonic crystal to approach Rayleigh again. This time, Rayleigh did not reject it. How do you feel about this? Qinzhao asked. Discuss, Rayleigh said without hesitation. Even though the angelic bloodline had faded, the disgust from the bottom of her heart could not be completely eliminated. Chapter 1891. Rayleigh was under Qinzhao's protection. But she knew one thing very well. She wouldn't stay here for long. Everything here didn't fit her. Qinzhao's attitude toward her was also very cold. The atmosphere in Minghua Villa was lively. The children were frolicking on the beach. But none of this had anything to do with her. Qinzhao lay on the beach and sunbathed. Just then, West called. President, we'll leave for the African plains tomorrow. Got it. I'll go there tomorrow. By the way, President, there's another news. What? Last night, another cruise ship sank on the east coast. Qinzhao perked up. What's the exact location? The cruise started from Miami and went around the world. Its next stop was Boston, but when it passed longitude 32, 7552, latitude 69, 3554, it suddenly stopped and lost signal. The Coast Guard sent people to investigate and found that half of the cruise had sunk into the sea. It completely sank after 4 hours. No survivors were found nearby. There were 898 crew members and tourists on the cruise. That location should be very close to the Bermuda Sea, right? About 1,300 kilometers, West said. Demons did it? It's very likely, West said. What's the government's reaction? According to my sources, the higher-ups should be very anxious. After all, 2 cruises have sunk in a month. They've already asked the military to make a statement. What about the psionic team? Chen Zhao asked. President, it won't be that fast, West explained patiently. Not everyone in the upper echelons of the government knows about the existence of the supernatural world, and not everyone has any contact with it. Only a small number of people actually know about it, especially those who are involved in politics. They are not allowed to come into contact with the supernatural world, and they are even forbidden from knowing anything about it. Many things that are reported to them will be treated as terrorist attacks. Right now, the upper echelons of the government believe that the 2 shipwrecks are terrorist attacks, which is why they are reporting it to the military. Only a small portion of the military knows about the supernatural world, so it has to be passed down level by level until it reaches the ears of someone who knows about it or is in charge of it. Then, this person will plan the operation. It's hard to say how long it will take for it to reach the Anti-Terrorism Security Department. Furthermore, this incident happened on the East Coast, so it's not under the jurisdiction of the Anti-Terrorism Security Department. West paused for a moment before adding, Now, it depends on how strong the government's reaction is, as well as the level of threat from the relevant departments. If it's a high level, then it's very likely that we'll be the ones to take responsibility. After all, we're the department in charge of dealing with supernatural incidents. Given how much Mansari hates the supernatural organization, Chen Zhao said, he won't allow us to accept such a high-level mission. That's right, West said. So my guess is that they'll probably work together. The supernatural organization and the psionic team will work together. If there's trouble, we'll take all the responsibility, because we're the official department. They can say that the psionic team is just supporting them, but if they get any results, they'll probably take the fruit. After all, we don't have much say in the higher-ups. Qin Zhao thought about it and said, Then we'll be more forceful. Either we act on our own, or they do it on their own. President, I think it's acceptable. If they want to work together, we'll do as they wish. Their only request is to accept our command. If they refuse, we'll have a good reason to refuse. To West, there were always 2 sides to every coin. If they dare to accept our command, their lives will be in our hands. If they refuse our command during the mission, we'll even have the right to punish them. You guys will go to the African plains tomorrow. I'll be the only one there. If the government's order came during this time, Chen Zhao would have to face it alone. Chen Zhao thought about it and hoped that he could do it during this time. It was much more convenient for him to act alone than for the supernatural organization to work together. Plus, he didn't know anything about the situation in Bermuda. The only situation Chen Zhao knew was that there was a big demon inside. As for how strong it was, Chen Zhao couldn't be sure. From the few times he'd interacted with demons from Bermuda, Chen Zhao guessed that the big demon wasn't weak. Chen Zhao vaguely guessed that the demon wasn't weak. And if that great demon's strength was close to his, it might not be good for others to come. He didn't even have time to protect them. Yang, don't you go to work every day? Yang Guo wasn't used to Chen Zhao calling him that. But at least it was better than Guer. Yang Guo was very resistant to being called Guer. Yang Guo was very resistant to being called Guer. In the whole world, only Zhang Tianyi could call him that. It was not because Yang Guo was willing to accept it, but because Zhang Tianyi did not care about his personal feelings at all. I'm from Longhu Mountain's North American resident office. I'm responsible for contacting some people. Nothing will happen in a month. I'm envious of people like you who have nothing to do every day, lying down and receiving your salary. Yang Guo glanced at Chen Zhao. I'm more envious of you. You also lie down every day and earn more than $100 million every month. Do you think I'm happy? What are you unhappy about? No, I'm really happy. Yanghua rolled his eyes. If you really envy me, then be my henchman. I'll give you twice the salary of Mount Lunghu. Then forget it. I'm used to being undisciplined. Even if Yanghua agreed, Chen Zhao was just asking casually. Qin Zhao didn't even know how to use him. Does your Mount Longhu have any unique techniques? Let me see. Since it's unique, why do you think I can show it to you? Hey, old Zhang, your disciple is disobedient. Can I feed him to the sharks? Seeing that Qin Zhao was going to complain to Zhang Tianyi again, Yanghua said disapprovingly. The Grand Master won't agree either. Your Grand Master wants to talk to you. Qin Zhao handed the phone to Yanghua. Yanghua glanced at Qin Zhao and took the phone. Grandmaster, Qin Zhao wants me to show him Mount Longhu's unique technique. I think he wants to learn it secretly. If he wants to see it, then let him. Cut the crap. But he won't understand, Zhang Tianyi said confidently. Chapter 1892. It was just as Zhang Tianyi had said. Qin Zhao couldn't understand at all. Because Qin Zhao didn't follow the Taoist cultivation method. Unless Yanghua told Qin Zhao all the methods. Otherwise, Qin Zhao wouldn't be able to learn it just by demonstration. Qin Zhao wasn't a genius who could learn it just by seeing it once. Zhang Tianyi knew this, and so did Qin Zhao. But Qin Zhao didn't want to learn Dragon Tiger Mountain's unique spells. Instead, he wanted to find some cultivation, inspiration, or enlightenment from their unique magic arts. What Qin Zhao wanted was not a technique, but an epiphany. Yanghua returned the phone to Qin Zhao, embarrassed. Qin Zhao, what spell do you want to see? How would I know? As long as you don't teach it to others, just show me. I don't know a lot. I mainly cultivate Taoist spells that are derived from the Yin and Yang twin. What's Yin and Yang twin? My spell is a body-refining spell, but I can't achieve Yin and Yang twin. I can only withstand Yin Qi or Yang Qi alone, so I can only use it alone. My normal state is Yang birth, while Yin death will cause me to lose my mind. Every time I use it, it's extremely damaging to my body, so I only use it when the Grand Master is around. Yanghua said. All of my magic arts are based on the foundation of Yin and Yang. Qin Zhao thought about it. Wasn't this like splitting the God Strike into two parts? Not everyone could cultivate the God Strike. After all, the God Strike used the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, and the energy of the universe to temper the body. The magic cultivated from the spiritual qi was Yang Qi, while the energy of the universe was Yin Qi. The Yin-death collision was like absorbing the energy of the universe into the body, but it couldn't achieve Yin and Yang twin. So, the final result was more Yin and less Yang. It was just like the Taoist saying, take what's in excess and make up for what's lacking. It was understandable that the Yin-death state would harm the body. Then I'll cast the spell in the Yang birth state first. Okay. First, I'll ask for God's decree. I've shown it to you before. Yanghua took out a yellow talisman. Holding it between his fingers, he chanted, God, please issue a decree. After the yellow talisman turned to ash, the surrounding heaven and earth's spiritual energy faintly contained a trace of spiritual light that entered Yanghua's body. Yanghua's body was instantly covered by the light. The strength of his body increased a little. Qin Zhao looked at Yanghua's body. He could feel that Yanghua had indeed become stronger. However, Qin Zhao could feel the trick to this spell. That talisman should be the key. In fact, the spirit talisman was just a medium, through which the surrounding heaven and earth's spiritual qi could be absorbed. The moment the talisman was ignited, the heaven and earth's spiritual qi was quickly gathered and attached to the surface of Yanghua's body. Actually, it was similar to how Qin Zhao channeled the spiritual qi into someone else's body. However, not everyone could control the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Therefore, he needed to use the talisman as a medium, and at the same time, combine it with the dermic seal to complete this spell. However, This spell was completely useless against Qin Zhao. First of all, if the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was not transformed into mana and absorbed into the body, it would cause harm to the body. The more he used it, the more he would get hurt. Without Qin Zhao's powerful body, even someone with Zhang Tianyi's cultivation would be injured. For example, Navat Singh had borrowed Qin Zhao's power back then. In the end, he had been lying in the hospital for more than half a month and had only been discharged a few days ago. Therefore, this spell was useless against Qin Zhao. Yang Guo's invocation didn't give Qin Zhao any inspiration either. Continue with the next spell. I'll show you how to borrow power. Yang Guo took a deep breath and his body shook slightly. Qin Zhao realized that Yang Guo's aura had changed. Yang Guo's aura became somewhat ethereal, like dust and smoke. Immediately Yang Guo's palms slapped toward Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao clearly saw a palm made of smoke land on his chest. However, the palm didn't hurt him at all. Like a gentle breeze, it swept past Qin Zhao and lifted his clothes. Qin Zhao touched his chest. It was a strange feeling. Yang Guo didn't seem to have used a spell just now. He didn't even use any powerful force. However, he could clearly see the wind from his palm. That attack didn't hurt him, but that was also because Yang Guo didn't really attack. Qin Zhao could also send out fist shadows. However, Qin Zhao's fist shadows were created when his strength and speed reached a certain level. It was like the arc of a falling meteor or the light and shadow created by the friction between a falling celestial body and the air. The fist shadows were purely a physical phenomenon. If one didn't have enough strength or speed, they wouldn't be able to get rid of the fist shadows. But Yang Guo's palm wind was so light, yet he could clearly see the palm wind. This confused Qin Zhao. He looked at Yang Guo in confusion. "What's that spell called?" Qin Zhao asked. After a moment of silence, Yang Guo said, "It's called borrowing power." "I think you should call it the melancholic palm," Qin Zhao said. "No, definitely not." Yang Guo seemed to have guessed that Qin Zhao would say that. His reaction was extremely agitated and resistant. "Pfft. Did someone give it this name in the past? Is it that old man Zhang Tianyi?" Qin Zhao looked at Yang Guo teasingly. Yang Guo's face darkened. "I don't want to talk to you. What's the theory behind that?" Qin Zhao asked curiously. "I can't tell you. If you tell me the trick, I'll have our bet last time," Qin Zhao said. Yang Guo hesitated for a moment. He didn't like to listen to others, but he had to abide by the bet. However, he had to abide by the bet. Zhang Tianyi had warned him. However, if he could reject the bet legitimately, it would be a chance for him to be free. Yang Guo looked at Qin Zhao. 1 year. I want our bet to be cancelled." Qin Zhao squinted at Yang Guo and sneered. "Don't forget that you have to listen to me in this 1 year. Even if I don't promise anything, you have to agree to any of my requests." "That's impossible. Why should I teach you Dragon Tiger Mountain's unique spell? Since you're using it to negotiate with me, it means that it's not a unique spell. Most likely it was found by that old man Zhang Tianyi, just to make you worthy of the name Yang Guo. So don't use it to bargain with me. My request, you have to agree to it whether you want to or not. Not to mention you can't beat me." Yang Guo was furious, but he couldn't retort. Just as Qin Zhao had said, this was indeed not a unique spell of Dragon Tiger Mountain. "Okay, just accept my requests and we'll still be good friends." Chapter 1893. Yang Guo sighed dejectedly. He really wanted to say, "I'll kill you." But considering the serious consequences, Yang Guo still chose the words of the ancients. A man knows when to yield and when to stand tall. Not everyone can learn how to borrow power. Don't worry about whether I can learn it or not. Tell me the trick first. Borrowing power is to borrow the power of everything in the world. Everyone can borrow different things. Some people can borrow the power of wild beasts, some can borrow the power of mountains, rivers, and seas, some can borrow the power of wind and clouds, and some can borrow the power of water and fire. Yang Guo waved his hand in front of him. A cloud of mist coiled in his palm, gathering and not dispersing. But in the end, he clenched his fist and the mist dissipated. Yanghua looked up and said, "My power is this ethereal mist. It's tangible but not tangible, tangible but boundless. What power does your power have?" Qin Zhao really couldn't see the power of his power. "I'm using softness to conquer hardness." "Then show me," Qin Zhao said. Annoyed, Yanghua yelled, "Are you asking me to teach you the trick or are you just bickering with me?" "Fine, continue." Qin Zhao shrugged. "To learn how to borrow power, you first have to understand what power is," Yanghua continued. "Everything in the world has power. Living things have it, dead things have it too." With that, Yanghua bent down and scooped up the surging seawater. "This handful of water also has power." With that, Yanghua returned the seawater to the waves. "This wave also has power, this ocean also has power, and this world also has power. That's a bit of a big concept. Does the universe have power?" Qin Zhao couldn't help but interrupt. "Are you a contrarian?" Yanghua was furious. "A good student should be able to deduce many things from one instance. This means that I'm a good student. Shouldn't you be proud to have a good student like me? Piss off." "Fine, fine, I won't talk anymore. Continue. There's a Chinese saying, unstoppable, unstoppable. This actually points to the essence, but very few can truly understand it." Yanghua continued. "Force isn't unchanging. Force can change at any time and place. However, the secrets and techniques of force can be summarized in 4 words: mountain of fire. This sentence is from Japan, right? Get lost, this is from Sun Tzu's Art of War." Yanghua scolded angrily. "Swift like the wind, gentle like the forest, aggressive like fire, immovable like a mountain, there are only these 4 types of power in the world. Sun Bin also knows how to practice power? I don't know if Sun Bin has cultivated force, but force was indeed comprehended from Sun Bin's Art of War." "What's the most powerful force?" Qin Zhao asked. "There is no one type of power that is the most powerful. It only depends on how much power you can grasp and use," Yanghua said. Swift as the wind, his movements were as fast as a hurricane. Su Rulin advanced slowly. His troops were as orderly as a dense forest. Invade like fire, invade and disturb, as fierce as raging fire, unstoppable. Immovable like a mountain, stationing troops to defend is as solid as a mountain, unshakable. "You still haven't told me the most important thing. How do I practice power?" "Not practice, but comprehension." "Comprehension, do you understand?" Qin Zhao was most afraid of so-called comprehension. In the past, apart from regular training, he'd cultivated. Most of the time, he'd reached where he was today through his own deductions and predictions. This was completely different from Taoism's so-called comprehension. Comprehension was all about sudden inspiration. It was just that he suddenly understood. This was what Qin Zhao was the worst at. In the past, when Qin Zhao and Old Turtle communicated, Qin Zhao hated it the most. What annoyed Qin Zhao the most was that Old Turtle kept talking to him about the stream of consciousness. What did he mean by, "You'll understand in the future," or, "You need to figure it out yourself"? "How did you practice it?" Qin Zhao asked again. "Once I broke the sect rules in the sect and was punished by the Grand Master. I had to meditate in the Tranquil Heart Hall for 10 days and 10 nights. One night, I saw the smoke rising from the incense in front of the 3 Pure One statues in the Tranquil Heart Hall. Then, my understanding of momentum suddenly flashed through my mind. Then, I comprehended the momentum of dust and smoke." Yanghua glanced at Qin Zhao. "But not everyone can comprehend force. It requires a lot of talent. Even on Dragon Tiger Mountain, there aren't many people who can comprehend force. Talent? I'm stronger than you. Isn't that enough to prove my talent? Since you can practice it, I can too. Power doesn't mean everything." "No, it means everything," Qin Zhao said matter-of-factly. With that, Qin Zhao suddenly clenched his fist and swung. A fist shadow tore through the air. The fist shadow landed heavily in the waves more than 20 meters away. There was a huge boom and a huge wave rose into the sky. This was power? Yanghua was alarmed. No, the fist shadow looked domineering and powerful. But it didn't feel like power. It wasn't power. It was just a magic attack that looked similar. It's useless to scare me. I said that power doesn't mean everything. There are many seniors on Dragon Tiger Mountain who are stronger than me, but there are only a few who can truly comprehend power. Yanghua still insisted on his point. If you want to comprehend power, you must first understand what your power is. If you can't even find your power, then it's just wishful thinking. Although Chen Zhao sounded tough, he didn't have much confidence. As for Yanghua's words, Chen Zhao still remembered them. Find my power? Is my power the ocean? Chen Zhao turned to look at the ocean. It was turbulent, violent, and boundless. According to Yanghua, power should be ever-changing. But the ocean was the ocean. What did it have to do with power? If it was borrowing the power of the ocean, there was no need for power at all. So, power didn't really represent something or a living thing. My power doesn't represent the ocean either. It's my heart. Only a human's heart would have that kind of ever-changing fluctuation. Using something to represent power was actually a reflection of one's own personality. For example, Yanghua's power was dust and smoke. Yanghua's personality was plain and casual. Chen Zhao was a bit sick of this. It was a good cultivation trick, but it had to be like a stream of consciousness. Wouldn't it be better to just write a paragraph of the trick? Why did he have to make it so mysterious? It would be more troublesome for future generations to cultivate. Chen Zhao thought about it. What was my personality? It seemed to be similar to Yanghua. Was my power also dust and smoke? Chen Zhao closed his eyes and imagined the wisp of smoke in front of the statue. I don't feel anything. I don't feel anything at all. Forget it. That feeling was too mysterious. I'd better imagine something more realistic. Chen Zhao turned to the green mountain behind him. He wanted to see if he could feel the power of the green mountain. Chapter 1894. He didn't feel anything. Qin Shan's aura wasn't his aura either. Chen Zhao looked up at the blue sky again. In the vast and boundless sky, he didn't seem to feel anything. What was his aura? It really wasn't that simple. Chen Zhao didn't even have an accurate concept of aura. He couldn't even comprehend the so-called aura. He wasn't good at these streams of consciousness things. He thought of a problem. Yanghua once said that everything in this world had its own potential. There were living things and dead things. In that case, if someone were to face him, would that person be able to feel the aura from his body? If that was the case, then he had aura. Everything had aura and he shouldn't be an exception. Was the aura that he had the same as the aura he had comprehended? According to this theory, could it be said that aura was like money? Everything in the world had value. As for those who could comprehend power, it was as if they could obtain money from everything in the world. For example, this person was suitable for this industry, and that person was suitable for that business. The comprehension and cultivation of aura was like the accumulation of capital. According to the theory of capital, no one had to do this business. As long as they were willing, anyone could accept any business. Similarly, everyone could choose the aura they liked. Yanghua, can everyone only comprehend one aura? I've never heard of anyone who can comprehend two auras. You haven't? Or impossible? No. You can only comprehend one aura, but it's like a reflection of your heart, so I don't think a person can comprehend two auras. Is there a price to pay for borrowing aura? Chen Zhao asked. If it's just a little, there's no price, but if you borrow too much, it'll cause serious damage to your body. Chen Zhao thought about it. It wasn't hard to understand. But Chen Zhao still fell into the paradox he'd created. Was there a flaw in the conjecture he had established? Or was there a paradox in Yanghua's words? After thinking about it, Chen Zhao pushed away his previous hypothesis. He reconstructed a new hypothesis. Actually, spiritualists were very similar to mathematicians. When a hypothesis was established, they would try everything to solve it. They would calculate and deduce the hypothesis from all angles to prove it correct. Qin Zhao thought for a long time and thought of another possibility. It was also based on capital theory. His influence was also money, and so was the influence of others. Borrowing someone else's power was like borrowing a credit card. If he only borrowed a small amount of power and returned it in time, then he wouldn't have to pay any price. Moreover, he could enjoy the pleasure of money in advance. If he borrowed too much power, he would not be able to bear it. This was the time to pay the price. It was like borrowing money from a bank. The longer he borrowed, the more he would pay back, plus the interest. Qin Zhao's thoughts became clearer and clearer. Was his own power equivalent to his own power? No, Qin Zhao suddenly thought of a possibility. How could people borrow power from each other? This kind of borrowing power was very much like the relationship between God and his believers. Believers believed in God, and God lent them strength. Forget it. I still can't completely clear my thoughts. Qin Zhao shook his head and temporarily gave up. Not only did he fail to comprehend it, he even created a new problem. It seemed that borrowing power was not as simple as he had imagined. How about it? Have you given up? Seeing Qin Zhao's gaze, Yang Hua's face was filled with pride. I told you, not everyone can understand it. It's a wise choice for you to give up. Qin Zhao glanced at Yang Hua. How long did you use to comprehend borrowing power? Half a month. You used half a month. Before today, I didn't even know what power was. Why do you think I gave up? Why do you think I can't comprehend it? Qin Zhao admitted that borrowing power was not as easy as he had imagined. But it did not mean that he would give up. He only planned to wait until the night was quiet and his heart had calmed down before entering the river diagram to comprehend it. Cultivators of all religions like to go into seclusion. Why did he go into seclusion? It was because seclusion could calm their hearts. Qin Zhao did not plan on giving up so easily. Moreover, he still had a killer weapon, the river diagram. If one day was not enough, then he would do 10. If 10 wasn't enough, then he would do 100. If 100 wasn't enough, then he would do 1,000. Qin Zhao did not believe that he could use 10, 100, or even 1,000 times the time of others to comprehend it. He could not comprehend borrowing power either. At night, this time, Qin Zhao did not fly into the sky to practice. Instead, he entered the river diagram directly. The river diagram was still as beautiful as before. The scenery was as lively as before, but Qin Zhao felt that something was missing. He had not entered the river diagram for a long time. Ever since Old Turtle had ascended to immortality, he had not entered. Things were the same now, but people had changed. The river diagram was still the same, but his old friend was gone. Of course, Qin Zhao was not the kind of person to be sentimental. Although some longing rose in his heart, Qin Zhao's mind had recovered. Qin Zhao began to comprehend and cultivate. Qin Zhao had always wondered if the river diagram was an alternate space or the entrance to a real world. If it was an alternate space, then the river diagram was too big. The space inside the river diagram could even contain Earth and still have some spare space. Therefore, this place should not have anything to do with Earth. Another thing was the time here. An hour had passed outside, but only 3 seconds had passed here. Time was a very special power. Qin Zhao did not even know if time counted as a power. Qin Zhao also knew a lot of powerful people. But Qin Zhao had never heard of anyone who could control time. But Nuwa, an ancient god, could create a world with a completely different flow of time. In any case, this ability was many times stronger than Qin Zhao's. Nevertheless, Nuwa's power was not something Qin Zhao could guess right now. Of course, this also gave Qin Zhao motivation. He could not compare to the ancient god. At least he had a goal to pursue. He was far from the level of a god. He still had a lot of room for improvement. Right now, Qin Zhao's focus was still on borrowing power. If he wanted to borrow someone else's power, he first had to understand where his own power was. It wasn't his own power, nor was it his own magic. Qin Zhao raised his power to the maximum and used all his trump cards. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. This was indeed not easy to comprehend. Qin Zhao racked his brains but still had no idea. Chapter 1895. Qin Zhao had been sitting where he was for 3 days and 3 nights. Qin Zhao had been guessing what the so-called influence was. But each guess was raised again and again. He denied himself again and again. First, influence is related to a person's personality, Qin Zhao muttered to himself. Second, it's affected by emotions. What was related to a person's personality and could be affected by emotions? Spiritual power? Qin Zhao thought about it. Was it spiritual power? However, not everything had mental energy. Qin Zhao suddenly stood up from the ground. No, it wasn't that he didn't have any spiritual power at all. Apart from humans, other things could become demons and gain intelligence. Before transforming into a demon, they would develop intelligence. Even if it was a brush or a blade of grass, it could develop intelligence. So, these things had spiritual power too. If this guess was correct, it was definitely related to spiritual power. But it wasn't pure spiritual power. Qin Zhao had activated 3 keys now. A golden key, a spectral key, and a red key. The spectral key could absorb the souls of enemies of a similar nature. Qin Zhao had absorbed a black dragon's soul before, so his spiritual power was much stronger than normal people's. But Qin Zhao didn't feel anything special about spiritual power. Spiritual power wasn't completely useless to Qin Zhao. But it wasn't very useful to Qin Zhao. First of all, strong spiritual power could increase one's resistance to spiritual spells and illusions. But strong magic could do the same. Also, when he cast spiritual spells, they would be much more powerful. But for this problem, it was the same as the former. The effect of strong magic was more obvious. Moreover, Qin Zhao knew very few spiritual spells. His best spells were Fall to Hell and Banshee's Charm. He could only use them a few times. In an intense battle, spiritual spells couldn't be used much. So, strong spiritual power was useless to Qin Zhao. It was tasteless, but it was a pity to throw it away. But now, if this guess was correct, then, spiritual power wouldn't be useless anymore. Qin Zhao slowly rose into the air and looked down at the ground. Below him were green mountains and ethereal clouds. How could he use spiritual power to turn it into influence? Qin Zhao spread his spiritual power out. He mixed in celestial power to see if there would be any changes. Qin Zhao tried, but there was no reaction. His mental energy and immortal energy did not fuse, nor did they reject each other. The two of them were clearly separated, and there was no reaction from each other. Let's try the spiritual chi of heaven and earth again. It was still the same, there was still no reaction. It was not magic power, nor was it spiritual energy. Qin Zhao closed his eyes and his spiritual power continued to spread out. Soon, Qin Zhao's spiritual power covered the entire small world. Just then, the earth, mountains, plants, rivers, and the clouds in the sky seemed to gather toward Qin Zhao's mind. Eh? Qin Zhao observed the things that gathered. A dark yellow air current rose from the ground, a green air current rose from the trees, and a blue air current rose from the river. There was also the white stream of air produced by the floating clouds. Qin Zhao clapped his hands. Ah! I understand now. After the colorful air currents gathered, they formed a colorful rainbow-shaped ring above Qin Zhao's head and spread out in circles. Above his head hung a ring of rainbow, like the halo of an angel. Qin Zhao looked up at the halo above his head. He felt a bit sick of it. If he added a pair of wings now, he could disguise himself as an angel. At the same time, Qin Zhao felt everything around him giving him power. It was as if everything was becoming his body. As long as Qin Zhao could bear it, there was no limit to this power. Qin Zhao's mental energy spread in the small world. It was like an amplified signal station, filled with magnetism. It kept sending out some kind of signal, or rather, some kind of rule. Everything within a 10-kilometer radius seemed to be covered by Qin Zhao's mental energy signal. This power absorbed from the mountains, rivers, and everything in nature completely fused into Qin Zhao's body. It also did not conflict with Qin Zhao's yin-yang fish at all. Qin Zhao felt as if this power was his own. So, this was how Yang Guo felt when he used borrowing power. Qin Zhao took a deep breath and pressed his palm down from above. Instantly, Qin Zhao's power merged with the power of the world. A huge palm pressed down like a Buddha's hand. The palm seemed to be real. It was almost 100 meters long. It fell from hundreds of meters in the sky and slammed into the mountain below. With a loud boom, a huge palm print was left on the slope of the mountain. The plants covered by the palm were completely destroyed. "Damn, this move is awesome!" Qin Zhao couldn't help but exclaim. The power of the world was even stronger than the fist shadows he'd developed earlier. Just then, Qin Zhao felt his right arm go numb and itchy. Qin Zhao reached out and scratched. With this, he realized that the fifth pristine eyeball on his right arm had opened. Qin Zhao removed the tube. As expected, the fifth pristine eyeball had opened. The fifth pristine eyeball was absorbing the power of the world in Qin Zhao's body. Huh! It had the same function as the fourth eye of the thunder, but the type of power it absorbed was different. Then, the fifth pristine eyeball would be called the eye of the world. In short, it was snobbish. After the eye of the general trend absorbed enough of the great trend of heaven and earth, it closed. The power of the world in Qin Zhao's body was still full. Qin Zhao returned the power of the world. The rainbow halo above his head also dissipated. Eye of the world open. Qin Zhao tried twice and finally succeeded in opening the eye of the world. Once the eye of the world opened, it started pouring the power of the world into Qin Zhao. The amount of power stored in the eye of the world was the same as what Qin Zhao could handle himself. This meant that Qin Zhao didn't need to specially absorb the power of the world around him. If he needed it, he could open the eye of the world and absorb the power of the world from it. The eye of the world could replenish itself. This was different from the eye of the thunder. However, this was because they absorbed different things. The eye of the thunder absorbed lightning. Qin Zhao had to wait for a thunderstorm or run into the high-voltage electric laboratory himself. Otherwise, the eye of the thunder wouldn't be able to absorb it. The eye of the world was different. As long as it was in this world, Qin Zhao could absorb endless power of the world. Qin Zhao started trying the power of the world and the eye of the world again and again. He tried to integrate the power of the world with himself. Chapter 1896. Under the power of the world, Qin Zhao's fist shadows became even stronger. If the fist shadows from before were purely physical attacks, then, after the fist shadow was strengthened by the power of heaven and earth, it had an enchantment effect. However, there was one thing, and that was that the consumption of the worldly power far exceeded the absorption. Even with the help of the eye of the general trend, his absorption speed was only twice as fast as usual. At the same time, their reserves doubled. Qin Zhao had predicted that if he went all out, he would not be able to escape. It would take about an hour for him and the eye of the general trend to completely unleash the world's momentum. In other words, he could only maintain this all-out state for an hour at most. Qin Zhao's physical body did not become stronger after using the power of the world. His strength and speed increased, but there were no qualitative changes. Power of the heavens and earth increased the effect of enchantments. Qin Zhao stayed in the river map for around 3 months before leaving. To the outside world, only 2 hours had passed. Portia was startled. She had thought that Qin Zhao wasn't home, so she asked the kids. The kids didn't know where Qin Zhao had gone either. In the end, Qin Zhao appeared out of nowhere. "Boss, where did you come from? You didn't even say anything. You scared me to death. This is my home. Do I have to report to you where I go?" Qin Zhao rubbed his shoulder. Just then, Yang Guo walked in. When he saw Qin Zhao, he was stunned. Strange, Qin Zhao's aura seemed to have changed after not seeing him for a while. And it became very strange. Xiaoyang, I have something to talk to you about. Let's talk outside. Yang Hua followed Qin Zhao to the front yard. Yang Hua stared at him. You look different from before. Qin Zhao opened his right palm. An invisible force gathered in his palm. Yang Hua's pupils constricted. That familiar yet strange aura. Force? Yang Hua stared at Qin Zhao in shock. You succeeded? How could this be? How did you do it? Yang Hua's face was filled with disbelief. Previously, he had thought that Qin Zhao couldn't understand borrowing power. At the very least, it wouldn't be that easy to comprehend. However, only 2 hours had passed. Qin Zhao succeeded. Qin Zhao's injuries were clearly different from his. What does your power represent? Yang Hua asked. This is what I wanted to ask you. I seem to be able to absorb all kinds of forces, Qin Zhao said. Mountains, rivers, living beings, oceans, the world. Are you sure? I'm sure. A colorful ball formed in Qin Zhao's palm. Yang Hua looked at him. Do you want to know what your power represents? Of course. Do you want to hear an awesome name? Is my power that awesome? I don't know. I've never seen it before. Then what did you mean before? It means that if you want an awesome name, you can think of one yourself. Everyone's power is different, but generally speaking, they can't escape the 4 forms of wind, forest, fire. What a waste of my feelings. Qin Zhao pouted. Qin Zhao glanced at Yang Hua. Will there be any special changes when you use force? Change? What kind of change? Yang Hua asked. Is it the change in mana or the change in the body? For example, a phenomenon. Phenomenon? I don't understand. Maybe your force is special. Why don't you demonstrate? Forget it. I'll study it myself. When Qin Zhao absorbed the surrounding force with all his strength, a rainbow halo would appear above his head. Qin Zhao felt awkward, but he didn't want to show it to others easily. Don't go. Why are you like this? You stopped halfway. Are you trying to make things difficult for me? Yang Hua was furious. He could tell from Qin Zhao's tone that something special would happen when he used force. Yang Hua was curious about what was so special about Qin Zhao's force. However, Qin Zhao didn't care about his feelings. This made Yang Hua furious. I'm the one who taught you this. You should at least show some respect for your teacher. Talk to me when you can beat me. Qin Zhao rolled his eyes at Yang Hua. No matter what I taught you, it's not too much for you to pay me back with interest. Interest? I used half a year to control you for this. Are you sure you want to ask for interest? Forget it, forget it. You're so boring. Yang Hua fled with his tail between his legs. Wait. Qin Zhao suddenly stopped Yang Hua. What? The enemies who want to kill you and that mixed-blood woman are nearby, Qin Zhao said. Where? Halfway up the mountain beside the highway. Why don't you do anything? They didn't enter my territory. That's the border of your territory, right? You know it's the border. That means they're not in my territory yet. So you're just going to let them keep watching? I don't mind. They're not watching me anyway. Grandmaster hired you to protect us. No, not to protect you. I'm protecting you. Is there a difference? I think there is. Protecting you is to be your bodyguard. Protecting you is to give you a place to stay. But there's a time limit to your protection. If you want to extend the time, you can pay a price. What do you want? For example, unique spells and the like. Yang Hua didn't even think about it and directly refused. Qin Zhao could learn how to borrow power in a short 2 to 3 hours. He was definitely very talented. Plus, they were about the same age. He was far more powerful than Qin Zhao. Even among his peers in Dragon Tiger Mountain, perhaps no one would be able to match him. He was definitely a 1-in-a-million genius. Yang Hua didn't understand that any peerless master in the world. They weren't the most talented among their peers. Their strength was often due to personal luck. Qin Zhao was that kind of person. Qin Zhao had only been in contact with supernatural powers for a short time. It had only been a little more than 2 years. Qin Zhao's talent wasn't very powerful either. He didn't have the charisma to say that his life was up to him. Even Qin Zhao's own training was haphazard. It wasn't a complete system on the whole. But Qin Zhao's cultivation was extremely solid. Of course, Qin Zhao could have his current strength. It was also related to his way of thinking. Most of the time, Qin Zhao didn't use metaphysical methods to understand cultivation. Instead, he used scientific methods to understand and comprehend. Yang Hu didn't understand. He was still too young. He felt that powerful strength was supported by powerful talent. Dragon Tiger Mountain made him, but it also restricted him. Qin Zhao, on the other hand, had walked a unique path. Chapter 1897. Mr. Faxpen, what have you been doing for the past 2 days? Xian Li realized that Ruan Faxi had been locking himself in his room for the past 2 days. Xian Li had originally asked Lisa and Mo Air to take a look. Did something happen to Ruan Faxpen? But the two of them were too lazy to care. They always said that nothing would happen to Ruan Faxi. Ruan Faxpen finally came out of his room today. However, his face was haggard and his eyes were lifeless. It's all your uncle's fault, Ruan complained. I've been working outside, and he insisted that I create a magic tool. Ruan Faxi could only craft magic tools for 48 hours straight without sleep. Maybe uncle needs it urgently. Xian Li couldn't blame Qin Zhao, who she respected. She instinctively found an excuse for her uncle. This is used to suppress one's aura. Your uncle only needs this thing when he unleashes his full strength. In North America, no one really needs him to unleash his full strength, so this magic tool is not in a hurry. The magic tool itself was not a very complicated magic tool. However, it was troublesome, and there was a certain degree of difficulty in some of the detailed steps. Are you ready? Mr. Farsburn. It's done. I'll go out for a while and send this to your uncle, Ruan said. Mr. Faxpen, let me help you. You can have a good rest today. Well? All right. Ruan Faxi was happy to relax and handed the ring-shaped magic item to Xian Li. Xian Li took the ring and left the hotel. At this moment, Xian Li's shoulder was bumped by someone who was coming towards her. Xian Li looked up subconsciously. I'm sorry. The man who bumped into her shoulder was wearing a hood. He turned around and glared at Xian Li. Be careful when you walk. After the man left, Xian Li stuck out her tongue. At this moment, the receptionist at the entrance of the hotel walked over and patted Xian Li's shoulder. Miss, your things were stolen by that guy. The greeter was obviously a local and knew some of the gangsters and scoundrels here. However, he was also very careful. After the man left, he walked over to remind Xian Li. Xian Li was stunned for a moment, then she left and searched her body. His wallet, phone, and the ring were gone. Oh no! Xian Li anxiously chased after the man who had left. Stop right there! The man broke into a run. Xian Li was not slow at all. She was a spiritualist to begin with, so her physique was stronger than that of ordinary people. Moreover, when they were at Minghua Villa, Chen Zhao would give her all sorts of supplements every now and then. Therefore, her physique was much better than that of ordinary spiritualists. However, the thief was also a local bully, so he was not slow to begin with. In addition, he was familiar with the local terrain. Xian Li was unable to catch up immediately. Climb over a wall, jump over a barricade, or crawl into a building. All of these made Xian Li feel strained and troubled. Fortunately, Xian Li's stamina was good. Even if she had to run a long distance, she was still able to keep up with him. After running for a while, the thief also felt a little tired. He originally thought that as long as he persisted for a while, the little girl behind him would be left behind. The result was beyond his expectations. That little girl was really good at running. The thief gritted his teeth and finally stopped. He turned around and saw Xian Li chasing after him. Little girl, do you want to die? Looking at the vicious thief in front of her, Xian Li remained calm. No matter how vicious the thief was, he was just an ordinary person. But she was a spiritualist and a curse witch. Give it back to me, or I won't go easy on you. Fuck off, or I'll kill you. The thief took out a dagger and slashed it in the air, staring at Xian Li fiercely. Seeing that the thief was unwilling to give it back, Xian Li had no choice but to attack. Staring at the thief, Xian Li chanted a silent spell. A red thread drilled into the thief's body. The thief did not notice it at all. The thief's breathing became heavier and heavier. He panted heavily. For some reason, he had already stopped. But the thief felt his body getting heavier, and his breathing became more difficult. It was as if he had run a marathon. Xian Li saw that her weakened spell did not seem to be very effective on the thief. Weaken would weaken the opponent's physique to a certain extent. However, the stronger the physique, the weaker it would be. Of course, this was also because Xian Li did not use her full strength. Seems like I went too easy on him, Xian Li thought. Xian Li used weaken again. This time, it was 5 times stronger. Weaken wasn't fatal. Even the most serious weakened spell would only need to lie in bed for a few days to recover. The thief suddenly felt his legs turn to jelly. He could not even stand. With a thud, he fell to the ground. The thief opened his eyes and watched as Xian Li walked to him. She took out the things he had just stolen. Xian Li found her wallet, ring, and phone that had been stolen. Xian Li looked at the thief on the ground with a sense of pleasure. She kicked the thief. I'll let you go this time. Xian Li was still soft-hearted. If it was someone else from the supernatural organization, one kick would probably make him bedridden for 3 to 5 months. Just then, a cold light shot down from above. Xian Li's heart froze. She realized the danger. But her body could not react in such a short time. Xian Li tried her best to move away, but the cold light had already pierced her chest. Wah! Xian Li took 2 steps back and spat out a mouthful of blood. Just then, a pale-faced man jumped down from the balcony of a house not far away. The pale-faced man stopped a few meters in front of Xian Li. Do you know where this is? This is Blackford, my territory. All spiritualists have to follow my rules here, but you dared to use magic on my people. The pale-faced man raised the gun in his hand. The gun was made of gold. The man stuffed a golden bullet into it. Normal people did not know. Only spiritualists did. Gold had a very powerful anti-magic effect. The golden bullet the man used was specially made to deal with spiritualists. Xian Li's face was also very pale. This guy stole my things. I just wanted to take them back. He's my subordinate, the pale-faced man said coldly. The pale-faced man said coldly. Moreover, a spiritualist actually had something stolen by an ordinary person. That can only mean that your ability is inferior. You're unreasonable. Xian Li's face showed an unusual redness. Blood rushed to her head, and she spat out another mouthful of blood. Give me the things and get out of my territory. Chapter 1898. Xian Li knew she couldn't win. She turned around and tried to run. But she couldn't outrun bullets. In a flash, Xian Li's calf was pierced by a golden bullet. With a thud, he rolled on the ground. The pale-faced man took the things Xian Li had just found, ignoring her on the ground. He pulled the thief up and left. Xian Li was just a little girl. She couldn't take it. She didn't make a sound. Her face was covered in tears. She climbed up with difficulty and limped back. Back at the entrance of the hotel, the receptionist saw Xian Li with tears on her face and blood all over her body. She immediately knew something was wrong and ran over to help Xian Li. Xian Li finally couldn't hold back her tears any longer and burst into tears. When Ron Faxpen, Lisa, Moore, and Kalon learned that Xian Li was injured, they all exploded. Xian Li's injury wasn't light. They quickly sent her to the hospital. In England, gangs had always been a problem in every city. Everyone asked Xian Li, but she didn't say anything. She just cried. They only learned some things from the receptionist. But they didn't believe a thief could hurt Xian Li. 2 golden bullets were taken from Xian Li's body. Was that something a thief could use? Clearly, the thief knew Xian Li was a spiritualist and purposely attacked her with the golden bullets. Everyone's faces were ugly as they stood outside Xian Li's ward. Xian Li cried until she was tired and fell asleep. She was just a little girl. Her mental endurance wasn't high. Now that she suffered like this, it was easy to imagine how depressed she was. What do we do now? Kalon asked. He didn't know what to do either. Ask the old vampire, Lisa said. We're unfamiliar with this place and don't have any clues, but the old vampire definitely knows. Since he used golden bullets, he's definitely not a low-profile person. It's the right choice to ask him. The key is, how do we tell the president? Ruan Faxben said worriedly. If the president knows what happened here, he'll skin us alive. That's why we have to solve this as soon as possible. We need to find the person first and then calm Xian Li down. Lisa was also terrified. I'll call the old vampire. Ruan Faxburn took out his phone and dialed Nagran Vagris's number. My Lord Earl, my companion was attacked in Edinburgh. I want to know if there is anyone in Edinburgh who uses golden bullets. Golden bullet. On the other end of the phone, Nagran Vagris raised an eyebrow. I don't know him, Nagran Vagris said. Ruan Faxi made a judgment based on the hesitation in his reply and the tone of his voice. He knew that the other party knew him, and they might even be related to each other. My lord, I'm sincere, so I hope you can tell us the truth. Ruan tried his best to control himself. I said I don't know him. Besides, I have no obligation to help you, Nagran Vagris said matter-of-factly. When Ruan Faxben mentioned the golden bullet, Nagran Vagris knew who they were looking for. That was one of his 7 descendants, Pero Vidal. That was a descendant who had accompanied him for 100 years. To Nagran Vagris, all 7 of them were his children. He couldn't betray his children for a group of outsiders. If that's the case, we can only look for him ourselves. Ruan Faxi's face was livid, and his tone became tough. This is Edinburgh, my territory. I won't allow outsiders to mess around here. But my man was injured here. Then you can only blame yourself for not protecting him well enough, Nagran Vagris said disapprovingly. Nagran Vagris, are you testing the bottom line of our tolerance? Ruan Faxburn's tone was heavy. At this time, he was too lazy to pretend to call Nagran Vagris Lord Earl. He directly called him by his name. Haha. You came to my territory to provoke me, and then you tell me I'm testing your tolerance limit? Don't you all think too highly of yourselves? Nagran Vagris, can I assume that the attacker is related to you, and you're the one who ordered the attacker? Ruan Faxben asked coldly. If that's what you want to think, then there's nothing I can do. Nagran Vagris wasn't affected by Ruan Faxi's threat. Due to your attitude, our cooperation ends here. You'd better leave Edinburgh, or I won't go easy on you. It's impossible to leave. You'd better prepare yourself. We'll go find you, Ruan Faxi said angrily. You want to start a war? As you wish. Nagran Vagris obviously wouldn't back down now. Since he'd already said it, there was no point in saying anything more. Both sides hung up the phone angrily. Ruan Faxaben said, The battle has begun. War? Although Risa didn't hear Nagran Vagris's words, she could roughly guess the situation from Ruan Faxaben's conversation and his tone of voice. Call on, stay here and protect Xian Li. We'll go find the old vampire to settle the score, Ruan Faxi said. I don't want to. I want to join, Kalon immediately shouted. This was the first time he'd been involved in a battle since he became a spiritualist. He wasn't willing to give up. He wanted to participate. Then who's going to protect Xian Li? Lisa glanced at Colin. If we start a war with that old vampire, he's likely to attack Xian Li again. What if she gets hurt without anyone protecting her? You can stay here and protect Xian Li, Kalon retorted. We're going to kill. Lisa's gaze was cold. Do you dare to kill? I. Kalon finally realized. The battle they'd imagined wasn't the same thing at all. Ruan Faxi, Lisa, and even more weren't going to fight. They were going to kill. They weren't joking. The three in front of them weren't good people. They were all people who had experienced real battlefields. Ruan Faxi patted Colin's shoulder. Colin, you should stay. You definitely don't want to see what we plan to do. Colin finally nodded and didn't say anything. The three of them weren't the kind of people who could swallow insults. Even more, who usually looked like a good kid, had the bloodiest fighting style. Chapter 1899. Lipeluo, did you attack a girl? Father. Lipeluo Weeder was stunned. Do you know that girl? That's a problem, Nagran Vagris said. Father, I'll deal with it myself, Lipeluo Weeder said. Lipeluo Weeder understood his father. When he thought it was trouble, it was real trouble. Bring your trusted men and all your weapons to my castle. All weapons? All weapons, Nagran Vagris said seriously. Nagran Vagris said solemnly. Also, inform your other brothers to join the battle. Nagran Vagris divided Edinburgh into 7 parts, and each descendant received a share. This was why he could control the entire city. Although Nagran Vagris was a vampire, his control over Edinburgh was similar to the Black Hands family-style operation. Then, the children all called to ask about the situation. Nagran Vagris told the children the truth. Nagran Vagris didn't dare to be careless. After all, he had the ability to kill a 2-headed ogre deep in the mountains. Of course, this didn't mean Nagran Vagris would back down. This was Edinburgh, his home turf. Earl, there's a group of people outside. They say they're your children, Nala El said as she walked in front of Nagran Vagris. Yes, Lipeluo is here. Let him in. Nagran Vagris nodded. Oh, I'll give you a day off. Go back first. Boss, I don't need a day off. That's your problem. You can go, Nagran Vagris said with an unquestionable tone. Nala El could only turn and leave. Just then, Lipeluo Weeder walked over with his men. Nala El glanced at Lipeluo Weeder. She didn't know the relationship between Lipeluo Weeder and Nagran Vagris. But they definitely weren't father and son. Nagran Vagris looked like he was only in his 30s. Lipeluo Weeder looked to be in his 20s. No matter how she looked at them, they couldn't be father and son. Moreover, if they were father and son, why did this person bring so many people here? Lipeluo Weeder glanced at Nala El. Nala deliberately slowed down her pace and looked back. Pero Weeder entered Nagran Vagris' room. At this moment, Nagran Vagris walked to the door, looked at Nala El outside, and closed the door. Nala El saw Nagran Vagris's actions and could only continue to leave. But at this moment, another group of people arrived. She was a voluptuous, sexy woman, with her hands in her pockets, walking like a cat and chewing bubble gum. This woman was followed by more than 10 other women. When the woman passed by Nala El, she stopped. Is my father here? Father? You mean Count Vagris? He's in that room. Nala was even more curious. She had never heard that he had a child before. But today, 2 people actually appeared. Nala watched as the sexy woman brought a group of women into the room. After that, 7 groups of people actually came. Nala had never seen so many people come to Death Valley Castle. It had never been so lively. There were at least 100 people here. In Death Valley Castle, there were usually only Nagran Vagris and Nala Iyer. Nala suspected that something big was about to happen. Nala deliberately slowed down her pace. When she arrived at the castle gate, half an hour had passed. She wanted to see if there would be more people coming. Nala El waited at the gate for more than 10 minutes. It seemed like no one else would come, she thought. But at this moment, another car came over. But this time, there weren't many people. There was only a small car. When the car arrived at the castle gate, 3 people got out. She knew these 3 people. No, she didn't know them. To be precise, she had only seen them before. The 3 of them had been here twice before. Hi, Miss Nala. You're here for the Count? Yes, we're here for Nagran Vagris. I'll take you to see the Count. Nala El was still worried about not having an excuse to go back. Just then, the three people arrived. Nala brought the three of them to the door. Knock, knock. Come in. Nala brought the three of them into the room. At this moment, more than 100 people were standing around. Among them, the 7 leaders were sitting beside Nagran Vagris. Nala El realized that when she came in, the atmosphere changed. The originally slightly noisy room instantly quietened down. Everyone shut their mouths and stared at Ruan Faxpen, Lisa and more. Nala, didn't I say that today is your business? You can go back first, Nagran Vagris said. Oh. Nala El thought they were doing something. Unfortunately, Nagran Vagris chased him away. You three are really bold. You threatened to start a war with me. Why? Can't find anyone? Nagran Vagris looked down at the 3 uninvited guests, his tone somewhat disdainful. Do you think you have the right to make us fight? Ruan Faxpen looked at everyone in the room. In the end, his gaze landed on Nagran Vagris. You think 100 or so people aren't enough? Nagran Vagris waved his hand. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Just then, everyone raised their guns and pointed at Ruan Faxpen, Lisa and more. The 100 or so people present were all those who had undergone vampire conversion rituals. However, their rituals were incomplete, so the vampire bloodline was very thin. Only Nagran Vagris and his 7 children were true vampires. These 100+ people all knew that they could be considered half of the spiritualists. Not enough, Ruan Faxpen said indifferently. Both Lisa and Moore were ready for a fight. Looks like you want to die. I'll fulfill your wish. Just then, Nagran Vagris's phone rang. To be precise, the ringtone wasn't his own phone. Li Pelua Weeder had given it to him after snatching it from Xianli. Hey, Xianli. Qin Zhao's voice came over the phone. Did you forget to call me today? Chapter 1900. Nagran Vagris listened to the man on the phone muttering to himself. Then he hung up. Qin Zhao saw that the call had been hung up. He dialed Xianli's number again. Xianli, is it inconvenient for you to talk? Are you being held hostage? Is someone beside you? Qin Zhao started to use his imagination. Nagran Vagris silently hung up the phone again. This time, Qin Zhao didn't call Xianli. Instead, he called Ruan Fashaban. When Ruan Fashaban saw the caller ID, a thought suddenly popped up in his head. I'm done for. In the instant that the call connected, Ruan Fashaban could almost feel the flames of anger erupting from the phone. Ruan, where's Xianli? What happened to her? President. Something happened to Xianli. We're solving the problem now. Ruan Fashaban's expression was very ugly. Why didn't Xianli say anything just now? She can't say anything? Is she seriously injured? Or is she being held hostage? She's injured. She's in the hospital. Her phone was stolen. We're negotiating with them now. Negotiating? Fight. Ruan Fashaban could only say honestly. Turn on the locator. Ruan Fashaban's expression was somewhat stiff. He turned to look at Lisa and more. Finally, he looked at Nagran Vagris. Big trouble is coming. My blood family and I are never afraid of trouble, Nagran Vagris said expressionlessly. You should be afraid. Hand over the murderer and this will end here. Ruan Fashaban's tone became urgent. Don't even think about it. Nagran Vagris was still determined. Do it! Ruan Fashaban shouted. Do it! Nagran Vagris gave the order at this moment. All of Nagran Vagris's blood family members opened fire. But there were no flames bursting out of their guns. A bright red energy ball gathered in Risa's palm. This energy ball was full of destructive energy. It's useless to use firearms in front of me. To be precise, these lightweight firearms were useless against Lisa. Nowadays, guns filled the cartridge with gunpowder. The firing pin would cause an explosion and push the bullet out. But Lisa could absorb heat from the environment. Therefore, the guns in their hands were equivalent to scrap metal. It wasn't just the heat emitted by the guns in their hands. Even the temperature in the air had dropped. Lisa casually threw the energy ball in her hand. Dodge! Nagran Vagris shouted. The energy ball then exploded violently. 4 or 5 vampires were affected and instantly engulfed in flames. Nagran Vagris was instantly engulfed in anger when he saw his kin being killed. A relative threw himself at Lisa. A shockwave burst out from Lisa's hand. The relative was sent flying by the shockwave. Ruan Faxpen and more were still standing behind him. They had no intention of making a move. Lisa could control the situation here by herself. Another vampire was sent flying by the shockwave. However, this didn't stop the other vampires from moving forward. More vampires' dependents surrounded Risa. Risa placed her palms on the ground, and the shockwave hit the ground, causing it to collapse instantly. Then, all the vampires around her were sent flying by the shockwave. The room that was originally on the castle tower collapsed because of Risa's shockwave. Everyone was sent to the lower floor. Nagran Vagris saw that a little girl was so difficult to deal with. He couldn't help but feel a little solemn. However, this wasn't the time for him to retreat. Nagran Vagris personally entered the fray. Nagran Vagris stretched out his arm and pointed at Risa. A ball of blood seeped out from his arm. A ball of blood shot at Risa. The blood suddenly spread out and enveloped Risa. Risa shouted softly, and a shockwave rippled out from her body. Risa's thermal shockwave wasn't something that could be released with just her hands. The ball of blood was blasted apart. However, the scattered blood turned back and shot at Risa again. Risa wasn't good at dealing with this kind of attack. Her fighting style was to attack, not defend. So, under this concentrated attack, she seemed a little flustered. Risa gave up defending and let the blood droplets hit her body. At this moment, Risa pointed her palms at Nagran Vagris. Boom! Nagran Vagris was sent flying by the shockwave. Nagran Vagris didn't expect Risa to be so difficult to deal with. He actually didn't get the upper hand in the first round. Risa, how's it going? Ruan Faxpen asked. Risa was slightly injured, but it wasn't serious. Ruan Faxpen handed Risa a bottle of medicine. It's my turn, Moore said, walking up. Huh! Nala El walked to the door. Suddenly, she saw flames shoot out of a window on the castle tower. Her heart skipped a beat. What happened? Did something happen? Nala El didn't know what to do. Just as she was hesitating, she suddenly felt a shadow appear behind her. Nala El turned around and saw a strange Asian man standing behind her. When did this man come? You! Nala El was about to ask. The man ignored Nala El and walked straight into the castle. Wait! Wait! Nala El wanted to pull him. But when he stretched out his hand, he grabbed nothing but air. Nala El sped up and ran to him. Stop right there. Who are you? Qin Zhao looked down at Nala El. This is private land, Nala El said seriously. Really? Whose land? Qin Zhao didn't stop. Stop. This is Earl Nagran Vagris's property. He's a big noble. Really? I'm here for him. Nala El clearly didn't believe him. Stop or I'll call the police, Nala El threatened, taking out her phone. Qin Zhao reached out and crushed the phone in Nala El's hand. Qin Zhao glanced at Nala El indifferently. Sorry, I wasn't careful. Nala El stared at him in shock. Qin Zhao clearly didn't have good intentions. She couldn't stop him at all. Qin Zhao walked forward as if there was no one around. Boom! Just then, another violent explosion sounded in front of them. Qin Zhao had already walked over with big strides. When Qin Zhao pushed open the door, everyone's eyes were on him. Nala El saw that someone had died at the scene. Nagran Vagris and the others were in a standoff with Ruan Faxpen, Risa and more. Nala El didn't understand what had happened. When Ruan Faxpen, Risa, and more saw Qin Zhao, their expressions changed. As expected, he still came. Chapter 1901. Qin Zhao stood up and glanced at Nala. Miss, it's not suitable for you to appear here. What exactly do you want? Nala, I told you not to appear here today. Don't you understand? Count, now! Leave this place, Nagran Vargas scolded. Nala had no idea what was going on here. Qin Zhao walked up to Ruan and the other two. Who hurt Xian Li? The three all lowered their heads. In the end, Ruan was the one who said, I don't know. Anyway, it was that guy. Nagran Vargas's face was cold. He didn't retort. He couldn't stay out of this anymore. Qin Zhao turned to look at Nagran Vargas. The next moment, Qin Zhao suddenly appeared before Nagran Vargas. Before Nagran Vargas could react, Qin Zhao had already grabbed his neck. His entire body was lifted into the air. Nagran Vargas couldn't fight back at all before Qin Zhao. Bang! Qin Zhao pinched a golden bullet between his fingers. President, it's him! When Ruan saw the golden bullet between Qin Zhao's fingers, he immediately locked on to Li Peiluoweeder. Put our father down! All of Nagran Vargas's family members charged at Qin Zhao with a furious roar. Qin Zhao swung his fist and a dozen family members along the way were instantly turned into ashes. No! Nagran Vargas roared. Nagran Vargas suddenly turned into a puddle of blood and escaped from Qin Zhao's hand. Qin Zhao glanced at Nagran Vargas, who'd returned to his original form. By now, Nala was already dumbfounded. What exactly was going on? Hand over the murderer, Ruan Faxburn said. Ruan knew that after Qin Zhao arrived, things wouldn't end peacefully. He spoke up now, hoping to give Nagran Vargas a way out. Do you think you can make me yield like this? Nagran Vargas's attitude was uncharacteristically resolute. Nagran Vargas suddenly reached out and grabbed his shoulder. Then, he tore his left shoulder off with force. Fresh blood gushed out from the wound and gathered into a puddle on the ground. The blood seemed to have a life of its own as it flowed on the ground and seeped into the ground. Then, the ground shook heavily. Guild leader, there seems to be something down there. I know, I feel it. If Ruan Faxi could feel it, how could Qin Zhao not? At this moment, the ground began to collapse. First, it was the stones and bricks that were originally laid on the ground, and then the buildings on top of them. Everyone kept retreating, and the ground collapsed more and more, almost covering half of the castle. The pit was bottomless, like a bottomless abyss. At this moment, a terrifying suction force suddenly came from the bottomless abyss. Everyone began to be uncontrollably sucked into the bottomless abyss. Even Nagran Vargas, the instigator, could not resist this attraction. Only Qin Zhao stood where he was without moving, watching them get sucked into the bottomless abyss one by one. President, Ruan Faxi originally wanted to ask Qin Zhao for help. In the end, Qin Zhao ignored him. He just stood there and watched the three of them get sucked down. He immediately understood that Qin Zhao was angry at the three of them. Only when everyone was sucked into the bottomless abyss did Qin Zhao jump in. There was a deep pool at the bottom of the abyss. It was about a few hundred meters from the ground. The suction force lasted for a few seconds, and then it turned into an upward current. It was as if something was breathing down there, moving up and down continuously. Nagran Vargas had grabbed Nala Iyer, which was why she'd been able to survive when she fell into the pool. Of course, it was also fortunate that there were intermittent upward currents. Only then did the falling slow down. Nagran Vargas picked up the drowning Nala El and turned to look in another direction. He saw Ruan Faxi, Lisa, and more crazily swimming to the shore. Hurry to the shore. Nagran Vargas had a bad feeling. There were many holes around the abyss. The airflow was flowing through these holes. At that moment, the pool suddenly exploded, and a huge snake head drilled out of the pool. The snake's body above the water was dozens of meters long. Its head was as big as a plane's. The moment the bloody mouth broke the surface of the water, more than a dozen members of the clan were swallowed into its mouth. Nala Iyer had never seen something like this before. Even the others hadn't seen it before. And Nagran Vargas knew what was down there. But it was also his first time seeing this snake. Whoosh! Suddenly, a beam of light pierced down from above. The beam of light passed through the serpent's mouth, and then the serpent, along with its huge body, exploded. The broken parts of the snake's body sank into the deep pool. Everyone was shocked. They stared at Qin Zhao, who was floating above the pool, in disbelief. Just then, snake heads started burrowing out of the surrounding caves. Every head was the same as the one Qin Zhao had killed earlier. There were at least 100 of them. They all opened their bloody mouths and hissed at Qin Zhao. 100-headed snake? All the heads of the snakes stared at Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao looked at them from afar. Qin Zhao didn't expect such a monster to be hiding here. Neither side immediately launched an attack. They were evaluating each other's strength. From this, it could be seen that the snake wasn't a mindless monster. Once it thought it could defeat Qin Zhao, it would attack immediately. The snake was very strong, but Qin Zhao could handle it in his normal state. Nagran Vagris stared at both sides. He was the only one who knew the snake's background. He became a vampire largely because of the 100-headed serpent. When he undid the seal on the 100-headed serpent, he had the thought that everyone would die together. But after releasing it, he regretted it. He felt that he'd been too rash. Finally, the 100-headed snake attacked Qin Zhao. Plop! A huge snake head was chopped off and fell into the pool. When the head landed, it immediately created a huge wave. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. This man could actually chop off a snake's head in an instant against such a monster? Nagran Vagris was even more shocked. Where did this man come from? Chapter 1902. Nagran Vagris knew the origin of the 100-headed serpent. The 100-headed serpent had once wreaked havoc in England before the first year of the Common Era. At that time, England had been called the Island of Monsters. No one in Europe dared to cross the English Channel, much less land in England. Legend had it that giants and monsters lived there. It was even used as a place of exile for Europe. The French used it as a place of exile for criminals. However, most criminals couldn't even cross the English Channel and ended up in fish stomachs. It wasn't until explorers truly landed there that they realized that the people living there were indeed savages. The deeper they explored, the more they realized how terrifying this place was. However, no matter how terrifying a place was, it couldn't stop humans' desires. More and more humans occupied the Island of Monsters. The 100-headed serpent was the king of monsters. It breathed fog and covered a large area, protecting its people. At the same time, it saw humans as food. The war between humans and monsters finally unfolded. The result was obvious. Humans won. The 100-headed serpent led its monster army and hid in the forests of Scotland. However, humans didn't stop because of this. Humans continued to expand toward all lands that were suitable for living. The war started again. It was still the humans who emerged victorious. This time, the 100-headed serpent's monster army was almost completely wiped out. The rest were also scattered and fled deeper into the forest. The 100-headed serpent was sealed. Humans built a castle on the seal of the 100-headed serpent. It was Death Valley Castle. Of course, Death Valley Castle wasn't called that back then. Vagris was the oldest noble family in England. This was because his family had always guarded this castle and shouldered the responsibility of watching over it. In the end, people had even forgotten the meaning of this family's existence. However, the people in his family still kept their previous vows. This was also why Nagran Vagris was shocked by Qin Zhao, a human who could fight against the king of monsters. In the ancient documents kept by the Vagris family, there were records of the two wars between humans and the king of monsters. Many of the documents described how terrifying the king of monsters was. In fact, during the Second War, rather than defeating the king of monsters, it was more accurate to say that he had schemed against it. The so-called seal was actually to make it sleep. While it was sleeping, he built a castle on top of its head. At that time, there was no existence in Europe that could rival the king of monsters. At that time, the spiritual world in Europe was far less prosperous and active than it was today. The 100 heads of the 100-headed snake attacked Qin Zhao wildly. Qin Zhao punched one after another, continuously shattering the snake's heads. However, even if its head was chopped off or shattered, it could still regrow in the blink of an eye. It had an almost inexhaustible life force. Flesh and blood rained down from the sky. Everyone was amazed by this earth-shattering battle. Neither side seemed to be able to do anything to the other. Nagrand Vagris looked at Ruan Fassbender, Lisa and more. The three of them huddled together, seemingly not worried about the outcome at all, as if they were discussing something. F.A. Shibin, explain to the president later. Why do I have to explain? Why don't you go? Because you're the oldest and we're all underage. You're not embarrassed to ask us to face the president? Why? I'm old. You should think about me too. Anyway, the president spoils you kids a lot. You're more suitable than me. I don't want to. Lisa rejected immediately. The president almost killed me back then. Then let's play rock, paper, scissors, Ruan Fassbender said. Whoever said it has to explain. Sure, MOR agreed. Moore was still too young. He didn't see Lisa and Ruan Fassbender exchange glances. In the end, they left without saying anything. Moore had a long face. How about 2 out of 3? What do you think? While they were chatting casually, Nagrand Vagris and his family members were frightened out of their wits. The battle between Qin Zhao and the 100-headed snake was too intense. It was completely beyond their imagination. Qin Zhao was scary, but the 100-headed snake was even scarier. No matter how many heads Qin Zhao killed, the 100-headed snake could regrow instantly. To Nagrand Vagris, if this continued, Qin Zhao would run out of energy sooner or later. By then, the situation would definitely be reversed. Nagrand Vagris didn't know whether he wanted Qin Zhao to win or the 100-headed snake to win. Qin Zhao didn't believe that the 100-headed snake could always grow heads. There was no such thing as immortality in the world. Qin Zhao had only killed 1,000 heads of the 100-headed snake. Basically, he'd cut off 10 heads on each neck. But the 100-headed snake still didn't run out of energy. The heads continued to grow. Qin Zhao was getting tired of it. He suddenly sped up and charged into the mouth of a head. To Nagrand Vagris, it looked like Qin Zhao was swallowed by the head. Qin Zhao forcefully charged into the 100-headed snake's esophagus. Qin Zhao wanted to see what the 100-headed snake's body looked like. But halfway through, Qin Zhao realized that the 100-headed snake's body started turning into rock. More accurately, the body of a snake grew out of the rock. All the snake's bodies were connected to a rock that was hundreds of meters wide. The 100-headed snake should have been sealed here in ancient times. Could it have been sealed for too long and turned into a fossil? Qin Zhao broke out of the snake's stomach. Of course, this was just Qin Zhao's imagination running wild. As long as a creature was still alive, its cells would be active. It wouldn't turn into a fossil for no reason. By then, the other snake heads had retracted too. They attacked Qin Zhao even more crazily. Right now, Qin Zhao was more interested in the rock that had fused with the 100-headed snake. He wasn't interested in fighting the 100-headed snake anymore. Qin Zhao took out his black trident and stabbed it at the place where the 100-headed snake and the rock were connected. The 100-headed snake's body started shrinking rapidly. As expected, the black trident had never disappointed Qin Zhao when it came to killing creatures with strong recovery abilities. Qin Zhao grabbed the rock that weighed hundreds of thousands of tons and put it away. He would study it later. Qin Zhao walked out of the cave. He glanced at Ruan Fassbender, Risa, and more, then his gaze fell on Nagrand Vagris and his kin. President, the culprit is already dead. I think it's about time. They've been punished. Ruan Fassbender kicked the corpse in front of him. It was Lepro Weeder's body. Chapter 1903. Qin Zhao looked at them and then at the corpses on the ground. Without saying anything, he flew out of the pit. Dozens of people stared at each other. Qin Zhao knew that Ruan Faisai wanted him to let these people go. Chen Zhao was just using this as an excuse. He didn't kill them all. But this didn't mean that Chen Zhao could calm down. Li Peiluo Weeder had sacrificed himself. His act of self-sacrifice in order to protect his compatriots might seem noble to them. But it didn't mean that Chen Zhao would pity him. He was the one who had caused all of this. Of course he should be punished. Ruan Faxaban glanced at Nagran Vagris. Take us out. Don't tell me there's no way out. Nagran Vagris silently led the way and didn't say anything along the way. His relatives followed behind him. They were also quiet. Ruan Faisai, Lisa, and more didn't care about their feelings. They were still chatting happily. They also knew that their relationship with Nagran Vagris wasn't the same as before. In the past, they weren't that good, but they could at least pretend to be polite. But now, they didn't even pretend to be polite anymore. Both sides had extremely bad impressions of each other. Nagran Vagris was just angry but didn't dare to say anything. He watched as his own son sacrificed himself to protect the entire clan. This was a huge blow to him. But he couldn't do anything. The power that Chen Zhao had displayed was too terrifying. No wonder Ruan and the others had said that the person behind them could talk to 23rd Blood Mary and Zhang Tianyi on equal terms. When Ruan and the others returned to the hospital, they saw Chen Zhao standing outside Xian Li's room, waiting for them. President, did you go see Xian Li? No, Chen Zhao said. Don't tell her that I didn't interfere. Just pretend that I never came and that I don't know anything. Why do that? If she knows that I interfered, she'll only feel more defeated. Okay, I understand. Ruan Faxburn handed Chen Zhao a ring. This was a magic tool that he made. He'd just gotten it from Nagran Vagris. Okay, I'm going back. President. You're going back just like that? What else? What do you want from me? Punish you? The expressions of the three of them were unnatural. Risa and Moore silently cursed Ruan Faxi for being a busybody. Not really. Ruan Faxburn's expression was a little stiff. It's okay. Everyone has inconveniences in the outside world. I can understand. Thank you, President. The three were overjoyed. All the debts will be settled after we return. I won't punish you for now. In the next moment, the three of them fell into despair. After saying a few words to the three, Chen Zhao turned and left. As soon as Chen Zhao left, Kalan opened the door. Mr. Farspen, Lisa, Moore, you're back? Who are you talking to? It's nothing. How is Xian Li doing? He's just a little depressed. Everything else is fine. His injuries haven't worsened. Chen Zhao returned to Moon Villa. It was only 3 in the morning in Los Angeles. Chen Zhao realized that Yanghua and Lily were still awake. In the front yard, Yanghua and Lily suddenly saw Chen Zhao descend from the sky. They all jumped in fright, wondering who it was. You're still awake? Chen Zhao looked at them. You're awake too. Where did you go? Yanghua drank a mouthful of beer. Would you believe me if I told you I went to England? It's more than 8,000 kilometers from here. Yanghua's tone clearly indicated that he didn't believe Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao shrugged. Unless he flew with him, Yanghua wouldn't believe him. Oh, do you know what this is? Chen Zhao took out a piece of stone the size of a finger. At first, Yanghua thought it was a normal stone. However, after turning it over and over in his hand, he discovered that this finger-sized stone carried a special aura. It contained some kind of energy, but he couldn't tell what it was. Where did you get this? Yanghua asked. I picked it up. Can I send it back to Dragon Tiger Mountain? Perhaps the elders of Mount Longhu will be able to tell. Sure, take it. Yanghua didn't expect Chen Zhao to be so easy to talk to. Just then, the butler's system suddenly sounded an alarm. Master, 2 unidentified people are approaching Minghua Villa. With that, the butler's system projected a surveillance image on the wall. Lily and Yanghua stood up abruptly. It's them. You're the 2 of them? Yes. It's them, Lily said without hesitation. Minghua Villa didn't have a front door. There were only a few mechanical blocks. If no one went to stop them, they couldn't stop them. Of course, Qin Zhao didn't plan on stopping them. Qin Zhao, what do we do? Fight. What's there to hesitate about? Are you sure? These two people are quite strong. Don't you have confidence in me? They're not weak, after all. Qin Zhao didn't refute Yang Hua's doubts. By then, Beast and Spirit Fox had arrived at Minghua Villa in the front yard. With the holy spear in his hand, Beast glanced at Qin Zhao, who was lying on the bench with his legs crossed. He then shifted his gaze to Lily and Yang Hua. At this moment, Yang Hua and Lily were ready for battle. Beast and Spirit Fox saw that Qin Zhao was still sitting there without moving. They thought that Qin Zhao didn't plan on interfering. If Qin Zhao didn't interfere, it would save them a lot of trouble. Qin Zhao had been lying down lazily, but when he saw the spear in Beast's hand, he raised an eyebrow and stood up. Let me see that thing. Qin Zhao curled his finger. Qin Zhao actually really wanted to borrow it to take a look. But to Beast and Spirit Fox, it sounded like Qin Zhao was provoking them. Without hesitation, Beast raised the spear and pointed it at Qin Zhao. If you want to stop God's will, you should accept God's punishment. Qin Zhao listened to Beast's tone. Why did it sound like a man who'd been brainwashed by religion? I want to ask, how do you want to punish me? With the holy spear, of course. Beast raised the spear and shot it at Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao raised his palm and blocked the spear's trajectory. But just then, Qin Zhao's palm was pierced. Chapter 1904. Everyone was stunned, including Qin Zhao. What was this? It could actually hurt him. After piercing through Qin Zhao's palm, Beast waved his hand. Beast waved his hand. Qin Zhao felt a suction force appear on the holy spear that had pierced through his hand. It was about to leave his hand. Qin Zhao grabbed the holy spear in his hand. The spear kept vibrating in Qin Zhao's hand, fighting against Qin Zhao's power. Come back! Beast roared. The spear resisted even more fiercely. Qin Zhao looked at his pierced right palm. His right palm recovered very slowly. It was almost as fast as a normal person. In the wound, there was a power that was organizing his own immortal power to heal the wound. Qin Zhao channeled more immortal power. If the power didn't force the wound out, it wouldn't heal at all. Get out! Qin Zhao tried his best to force the power out of the wound. The power wasn't weak indeed. But Qin Zhao's body was his home field, after all. How could Qin Zhao lose to an ownerless power in his home field? A black ball of energy shot out from the wound on Qin Zhao's palm. This mass of energy was enormous. After hovering in the air for a while, it suddenly charged at the spear. After Qin Zhao forced the black ball of energy out of the wound, it healed immediately. At the same time, the spear resisted even more fiercely. It also emitted a scorching heat. If a normal person held it, they would probably fall out in the blink of an eye. Giant spirit transformation, dark assimilation, body double, all techniques returned to one. Qin Zhao entered his complete form. Qin Zhao had already put on the ring that hid his aura. So, Qin Zhao only looked like his form had changed, but his aura wasn't leaked. Beast and Spirit Fox were very anxious. This had never happened before. They couldn't retrieve the spear. This had never happened before. By now, the spear had turned crimson in Qin Zhao's hand. It was like a red-hot soldering iron. But Qin Zhao still held it tightly. The spear started growing bigger and heavier. Qin Zhao didn't hold back anymore. He increased his grip on the spear to the maximum. The part of the spear that he held started cracking. Beast and Spirit Fox's expressions changed drastically when they saw this. They attacked Qin Zhao directly. Qin Zhao lifted his foot and the beast was kicked into the air. He then raised his right arm and aimed it at the beast. A white light shot out. When the wild beast landed on the ground, it was already charred. It couldn't be any more dead. The beast's corpse released a black energy that returned to the sacred spear. The Spirit Fox held two swords and slashed at Qin Zhao's thigh. However, the Spirit Fox's twin swords were broken. Qin Zhao lifted his foot and stomped down, The spirit fox was also crushed into meat paste. Yang Hua's expression was unnatural, and Lei covered her mouth. The two people who had been chasing them were actually defeated and killed by Chen Zhao just like that. The entire process was too easy and casual. It was so casual that they couldn't believe it. The spirit fox's corpse also released a wave of black energy and returned to the sacred spear. Chen Zhao focused more on the holy spear in his hand. The power of this weapon was unparalleled. He couldn't even control it. If you continue to cause trouble, I'll destroy you. By now, Chen Zhao had gone all out. Rainbow halos appeared above his head. Yang Hua raised an eyebrow. He couldn't sense Chen Zhao's aura. He couldn't feel Chen Zhao's aura, but he could still feel it when Chen Zhao used force. Chen Zhao's body was enveloped by the tremendous force of the world. Once Chen Zhao used the force of the world, the sacred spear resisted even more fiercely. Chen Zhao's power was incompatible with the sacred spear's own power. They were like fire and water. The sacred spear had already turned crimson. Even Chen Zhao's fist, which was holding the spear, had turned red. Crack! A piece of his hand had already cracked. Cracks also started spreading from the broken part. Just then, Chen Zhao's right hand also grabbed the sacred spear. The sacred spear started to bend and change shape. Stop! Stop! Just then, the sacred spear suddenly made a sound. The sound was filled with panic and impatience. Yang Hua and Lei both looked at Chen Zhao and the sacred spear in shock. Who are you? Chen Zhao didn't retract his power. He still used the same strength to bend the sacred spear. If Chen Zhao increased his strength by 10%, he could completely break the sacred spear. Tugoya Abbey. Chen Zhao turned his head and looked at Yang Hua. Have you heard of this name? No. Yang Hua also didn't know. Tugoya, the ruler of the old days, Lei said. He's the famous exploder in the Cthulhu mythos. He symbolizes fire and is a third-tier existence in the Cthulhu mythos. Yang Hua looked at Lei in surprise, because he knew that Lei hadn't come into contact with the spiritual world. He shouldn't be too familiar with the matters of the spirit world. How did she know this name? Lei, how do you know? Yang Hua asked. I'm the author of the Cthulhu mythos, Lei said. I've already published 2 books related to the Cthulhu mythos. Why are you hunting her? Chen Zhao asked. Because she's a snitch. Because she's a snitch, Tugoya Abbey said. Katuja Abbey said. What she wrote is leaking our plans. Chen Zhao and Yang Hua exchanged glances. Then Chen Zhao asked. What plan? I don't know. You won't be scared if I don't teach you a lesson, right? Chen Zhao increased his strength. The Holy Lance's arc was already huge. It looked like it was about to break. I really don't know. My mission is to kill all the snitches. Who gave you the mission? I don't know. You're too perfunctory. Chen Zhao sounded displeased. It must be my superiors. I submit to them. They can communicate with me mentally, but I can't read their thoughts. Then tell me your plan. What are you going to do? At first, I attached myself to a human body, but I realized that a human body couldn't sustain my power, so I had my believer make this gun. Then I attached myself to this gun and started looking for snitches like this woman. In 1,000 years, I've been in the hands of many humans and killed one snitch after another. 1,000 years? You've existed in this world for 1,000 years? 1,000 years is just an instant to me. My time is far beyond what you humans can imagine. The Cthulhu mythos only appeared in the last century, right? Chen Zhao asked, confused. No, the Cthulhu mythos only became famous in the last century. Actually, the original author, Howard Philip Lovecraft, wrote it after consulting many ancient documents. Rumor has it that Howard Philip Lovecraft was influenced by something unspeakable. 9 Heavens Divine King. Chapter 1905. What's your original body like? Chen Zhao was curious. If I destroyed the spear, will you come out? Tugoya Abbey fell silent. The great old ones can't appear in the modern world, Lily said. At least not in the setting. Qin Zhao could feel the mysterious murderous intent from the spear. Clearly, Lily had hit Katugia Abbey's sore spot. What if it appears in the modern world? Qin Zhao asked. Obliterate, Lily said. The murderous intent on the spear intensified. So if I destroy the spear, this guy will lose his protection and be obliterated? Yang Guo looked at Lily in confusion. How do you know? I just know. It seems like the setting should be like this. Lily was also confused. Just then, Samuel jumped onto Qin Zhao's shoulder. This guy is the god of fire element among the unusual gods. Qin Zhao was surprised. He's an unusual god? Like the unusual gods I've met before? Yes, but he's just a bit stronger. Then why can those from the past appear in their original bodies, but this guy can't? Just like how we demons from hell can't appear in the modern world, but it's not an absolute restriction. In fact, only the great lords will receive absolute punishment. Those below that will at most be suppressed. The unusual gods also come from hell? No, they come from another world, Samuel said disapprovingly. They think they're strong and want to take over hell. In the end, they're all kept in hell and treated as pigs by us. But I have to admit that they taste really good. Yang Guo and Lily couldn't understand the conversation between Qin Zhao and Samuel. Qin Zhao's language was already hard to understand, while Samuel was meowing. But they could clearly tell that Qin Zhao was talking to the little kitten. So, do you know his intentions? It's nothing more than these ancient gods wanting to develop some believers, or search for some possibility of descending. However, some prophets learned of their existence in advance, and then leaked their information, and even their plans. This guy called Kutagia Abbey, to put it bluntly, is an assassin sent by the ancient gods. She's a prophet? Qin Zhao glanced at Lily. A complete world will always have all kinds of rules. However, no matter how complete a world is, there will always be some loopholes in the rules. Prophets exist to make up for these loopholes. It's just like computer repair software. It's not a big deal. There are thousands of prophets in the world, all kinds of prophets and all kinds of loopholes. If all the otherworldling gods descend, won't Earth be in danger? What danger? Your current strength is more than enough to deal with it. The most powerful otherworldly god will never descend, just like how the demon king of hell will never descend. Even if you don't do anything, the otherworldly gods can't rule the world. Samuel landed on the spear. Give this to me. I don't have this breed in my ranch. Kutagoya Abbey couldn't understand their conversation. However, he could clearly feel a strong sense of malice. How are you going to get it back? By mail? No need. Use all your strength to throw him into space. I'll retrieve him myself, Samuel said. Thrown into outer space? Are you serious? It's too difficult to use my real body's power in the modern world, but I can leave it. Fine. Qin Zhao gripped the spear tightly. What are you doing? What are you going to do to me? Kutagoya Abbey screamed in fear. He seemed to have sensed something. Qin Zhao took 2 steps back with the spear. Then he sprinted. The airflow caused by Qin Zhao's sprinting made Yang Guo and Lily lose their balance. The airflow was too strong. After sprinting more than 10 meters, Qin Zhao increased his strength to the maximum. The spear flew out of his hand in an instant. Bang! The spear broke through 100 times the speed of sound and pierced through the clouds under the night sky. It was too fast. In the blink of an eye, it was tens of thousands of meters in the sky. Qin Zhao had thrown it with tens of millions of tons of force. The speed was unimaginable. No aircraft in the world could compare to this speed. Yang Guo and Lily's mouths were agape as they watched the long spear disappear into the night. In 2 minutes, it had surpassed the International Space Station. In 3 minutes, it had left low Earth orbit. With Qin Zhao's strength, the spear also disappeared after leaving low Earth orbit. In the end, it disappeared into the void. Perhaps a human device had found the spear. But because the spear had gone too fast, there was no time to monitor it. How can you give it up so easily? That spear should be a powerful weapon, right? Yang Guo looked at Qin Zhao, confused. I have something better, Qin Zhao said matter-of-factly. Why do I need the spear? You can give it to me even if you don't want it. I'm happy to accept it. Then go get it. Yang Guo was speechless. If the spear was on Dragon Tiger Mountain, it could probably be their trump card. Okay, Qin Zhao said. You're not a threat anymore. You can leave now. That's not nice of you. Why are you in such a hurry to chase away guests? You two are troublemakers. If I don't chase you away, would I keep you for New Year? But it's 3 in the morning. Then leave tomorrow morning. Oh, don't forget our bet. In half a year, you have to come whenever I call you. Qin Zhao hadn't forgotten their bet. Thinking of it, Yang Guo felt a toothache. Why was he so stupid back then? Why did he bet with Qin Zhao? In the end, he'd fallen into a trap himself. He wanted to go back on his word, but when he thought of Qin Zhao's terrifying power, he gave up on the idea. If Qin Zhao could shoot a spear into outer space, he could probably shoot people into outer space too. Just think about what would happen if he angered Qin Zhao. If Qin Zhao threw himself into outer space, it would feel scarily good. Then, the two returned to their rooms to pack. In the morning, the two of them carried their luggage and left. Yang Guo kept complaining that Qin Zhao didn't know how to treat guests. On the other hand, Qin Zhao completely treated them as jinxes. Chun, why did Lily and Yang leave? They left if there's nothing else. Otherwise, how long do you think they should stay here? Okay, they don't look like bad people. They're not bad, but they're very troublesome. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.